To prove that we are going right into it. See, you already are. No, to prove we're already going right into it. Zero stalling. We already hit record today on this beautiful, glorious day. By reading my chat, that is true. All right, we're going right into it. Chapter 1248, because we got 2 hours tomorrow and 2 hours today before we got to leave. So we got to make the best of our ability and knock out chapter 248 to 66 before we leave. I think we can make it. We're cutting it close. We're definitely cutting it close. So hopefully we can finish it. But let's find out. Let's find out. Chapter 1248 is called 1,000 Years of Waiting. Oh shit. It's like to you in 2000, right? In 2000 years from Attack on Titan to you in 2000 years. All right, 1,000 years of waiting in the primitive forest outside of Bayam City of the Roasted Archipelago. The leaders of the resistance gathered in a mountain cave as they looked respectfully at the sea gods blessed. I'm gonna just play this already since we are close to the finale. At the sea gods blessed. Let's do this. At the sea gods blessed. He was wearing a black cloak, his brows were yellow, and his blue eyes were dark blue. Lord Denitz, this is an opportunity. A bald man in a wheelchair with a green beard, Kalat said in excitement. His partner, Edmonton, whose face was colored with short red patterns, immediately said, Lord Denitz, according to our intelligence officers, the situation in Bayam is chaotic. Be it the Church of the Lord of Storms or the Governor's General Office, everyone is feeling anxious because of the encirclement of Backland by the facing military forces. Having said that, Edmonton looked at Kalat and got the person in charge of the corresponding field to give a more detailed description. Kalat looked at solemn-looking Lord Denitz and deliberated over his words. Internal cracks amongst them can already be seen. Some people wish to be the commander of the forces of the colonies to support Backland, while others wish to hold on to this place as a tender for the refugees. For their resurgence. Lost my place. The difference in opinion had caused the military and the beyonders of the Church of the Lords of Storms to be at a loss. There are flaws in every aspect. Lord Denitz, this is our chance. We can agree to the conditions of the Fasig and Fena Potter Navy. We can cooperate with them. Whoa, what? Cooperate? No. We gotta take them out. To cooperate with them to attack Bayam and take back our kingdom. It's indeed an opportunity, but is this something I can decide? It's not like I'm It's not like I'm stupid. Denitz listened quietly to the leaders of the resistance and muttered to himself. Having grown up in into shit. Hold up, the music is a little bit loud for me. And I'll raise it up for you guys. Lord Dog shit. I see what you did there. Oh, I gotta show you guys our dog, by the way. The new addition to the family. Having grown up and into this, I'll show you a picture because the missus said she's not ready today, but she'll be ready to show herself on camera tomorrow with the new dog. Having grown up in Entis, this famous pirate treasure hunter didn't have any qualms about attacking the Loan colonies. He had zero hesitation or uncertainty about it. Of course, he didn't have a strong sense of belonging to the Entis Republic either. In fact, when he was occasionally a part-time pirate, he preferred targeting businessmen from Entis. This is because they often carried more valuable luxury items with them. Oh yeah, it ain't no competition, love. It ain't no competition. Zero competition. She's kind of cute. Zero competition. There was only one reason why Denitz didn't agree on the spot to the request of the resistance leaders. It was because he had become a conspirer, so he knew very well what his position was. A human mouthpiece, a tool that was responsible for passing messages between German Sparrow and the leaders of the resistance. German is most likely Loaness. If I were to agree to it directly, I might not be able to see tomorrow's sun. However, he acts like he doesn't care about the Loan at all. Dog shit. I can't be fooled by such superficial appearances. Denitz cleared the throats and surveyed the area. This matter is of a grave importance. Prepare a clean and serene altar immediately. I need to pray to the god. And an organization that believes in the sea god such a request didn't surprise the likes of Kalat, Edmonton, and the others. It even met their expectations. Hence, they immediately arranged for their people to prepare for the sacrifice. The resistance in the Roasted Archipelago can sit still any longer. They were also supported by countries like Fasik, Entis, and Fena Potter to survive this long, or else they wouldn't have been annihilated by the Loan and the three churches. I even got them to extract quite a bit of help from the various countries. After hearing Denitz prayers, he sighed. Sighing in the ancient palace, he lightly tapped the edge of the model table in front of him. After pondering for a few seconds, he conjured the world German Sparrow. The crazy adventurer immediately took out a praying posture and said in a deep voice, use the current situation to directly negotiate with the upper echelons of the Church of Storms and the Governor's General Offices, exert pressure on them. The goal is to force them to give in and accept the ideal of self-governance by the people of the Rorschach Archipelago. The resistance can guarantee that the Loaness will have most of their interests protected, allowing them to mobilize the troops and beyonders to reinforce Backland. Inside the clean and tidy altar, Danitz, who received the feedback, straightened his back. He turned around and looked at the leaders waiting outside. He said with a solemn expression, I have received a revelation. God has informed us that every citizen of his is precious, and necessary sacrifices for the sake of the war should be avoided. We absolutely wouldn't want to start a war, but we are not afraid of having one. In short, let's try to use the present situation to negotiate with the Loan with our forces, forcing them to make a conclusion that will satisfy most of us, not all of them, but most of them. If not, we can consider the war. God says to remember the hatred, but don't let it blind you rationally. The people around you and are in a beautiful future, the most important things. After becoming a conspirer, Danitz realized that his powers of persuasion and his ability to fabricate explanations were increasing by leaps and bounds. Like he's getting good at it. Many a time his thoughts would automatically take shape when he opened his mouth. I'll loop this one for now. When he opened his mouth, Kalat, Edmonton, and the other leaders of the resistance all had a deep hatred for Loan colonial masters, but the words of the sea god and the Lord Danitz, the fact that they're calling him Lord Danitz, I can't get used to that. And Lord Danitz had successfully wavered their resolve. They had a clear understanding of how powerful the Sea King was over this period of time. If the war developed to the point where both parties were blinded with bloodlust, the Blue Mountain Island where Bayam was located might be completely submerged by the sea and become a ruin. All the locals would end up becoming dragged to the grave by their actions. Easy, is there a chance you read until 57 with the second stream later? I might be able to do that. The powerhouses from FASIC. Yeah, so second stream is 7 a.m. for me. It's cooked. Music for 58 anyways. Okay. The powerhouses from FASIC and Finnapotter were indeed capable. Wait, 58? As for them, Kalat and the other leaders of the resistance didn't trust them much. They believed that these fellows were no different from the Loan-S. They were all bandits from the northern continent and could rip off their masks at any time to become the new colonial masters. After a moment of silence, Kalat, who was sitting in a wheelchair, looked at the man in a black cloak on the altar and said to Lord Danitz, "We are willing to work hard for peace." He paused for a moment before saying, "According to the intel, the ones who had the final say in the Rorschach Archipelago is Sea King John Coatman. It's best if we negotiate with him directly." Danitz nodded slightly and said, "That's exactly what I was thinking. We need to send someone to represent us and enter Bam to face John Coatman." Just as he was about to ask who was willing to go, he suddenly noticed the gazes of Kalat, Edmonton, and the others were all on his face. It was as though they were saying that the blessed of the sea god of the Intispire, who had a relatively extraordinary status, was the most suitable candidate. Dog shit. The Nitz cursed silently as he looked at the crowd and quickly thought of something. Yes, this is an honor. It also contains extreme danger. I know that some of you are filled with the spirit of sacrifice and want to make the necessary contributions. How about this? Let's draw lots to decide. This is the fairest way. I have no objections. Kalat and company didn't hesitate to give an answer. After a few minutes later, Danitz looked at the card in his hand and his facial muscles twitched. Why would it twitch? Okay, City of Silver at the top of the spire in the chief's room. Colin Iliad casts his gaze at Derek Berg, who appeared less physically developed when placed in contrast to his surroundings. Are you ready? With a leg bone-like object in his hand, Derek held a ghostly blue Thunder God's roar, which was wrapped in lightning bolts, and nodded heavily. Ready and good to go. He didn't act like a Beyonder from the Sun Domain, but more like a berserk warrior. While white hair and the old scars on his face, Colin Iliad immediately shifted his gaze and looked at Livia. Are you ready? Livia, who had a head of silvery gray hair and a pair of light gray eyes, no longer wore the usual black robe with purple stripes. Instead, she wore a set of black armor. She nodded her head indiscriminately and said, "Ready." I thought I said Rudy. And said, "Ready." Demon Hunter Colin, who had become a silver knight, cast his gaze onto the others in the room and asked if they were ready. After receiving a positive response, Colin Iliad slowly walked to a wall, removed the two swords hanging on it, and carried them behind him. Let's set off. The City of Silver gave the order in a concise manner. The team he led would once again head for the afternoon town camp. They would explore the Giant King's court further and find the path to the real sea. Amidst the clinking sounds of metal, Livia, Derek, and company silently followed behind the chief. They walked out of the room and down the stairs in an ordinary manner. Along the way, they saw the Waite Shearmont and the other elders of the 6-member council, they saw the City of Silver residents maintaining order in this fire. These people were either leaning on a railing or waiting at the staircase. Their experiences were abnormally solemn, as though they were sending off the team that was carrying hope. No one spoke. The entire place was silent, but when Colin, Iliad, and the others passed by, the City of Silver residents raised their right arm and clenched their fists. Amidst the sound of this action, Colin and the other members of the expedition team left the spire and hit the road. They immediately lit lanterns covered in animal hide. Under the dim yellow light, residents of the City of Silver walked out of their houses and stopped by the roadside. They looked at Derek and company with admiration and anticipation. One by one, they raised their right arm and clenched their fists in front of their foreheads. Derek subconsciously straightened his back, his heart burning. Just like that, the expedition team followed the path of the city gates under the watchful gazes of the crowd and walked out of the City of Silver. As though they had a tactic understanding, Colin, Derek, and Livia, who was just left to the protection of the city walls, turned their heads at the same time to look at their home, which had stood in the darkness for 2,584 years. They saw that the residents of the City of Silver hadn't left. They were all standing near the city gates, looking at them. With a swoosh, everyone raised their right arm and placed their fists in front of their foreheads. This was the highest form of respect and also the deepest heartfelt blessing they could give. Colin Iliad stared silently for a few seconds, then he closed his eyes and raised his... I don't like this setup. Then he closed his eyes, raised his right arm, waving it downwards, set off. I'm scared for Colin, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I'm scared for Colin Iliad now. This sounds scary. Derek and company immediately turned around and carried the animal hide lanterns, which emitted a faint yellow light. They stepped out into the dark path in silence and determination. Destination: Giant King's Court. Oh, it's gonna be a good Volume 6 finale, huh, guys? Oh, shit. Yeah, the flags are everywhere, brother. The fucking flags have never been redder. Just like, what was it in Volume 1 where Klein told what he told Dunn? Wow, man, that sounds like a death flag. It's like I think, what was it Dunn said? I hope I don't die next. And Klein was like, huh. That's not, he even like thought that and he said, huh, that sounds like a death flag. Like, what? Oh, what is this? Like your death flag moment or something like that? I don't like this. I'm seeing the flags going up in the air, man. Chapter 1249 is called Showcasing His Might. Boom, boom. In an underground shelter in Backland, Audrey, who had dressed in hunting attire, listened to the distant explosions. When she turned around, she happened to see Melissa looking at her in confusion. The young girl who had just reached adulthood asked in a dreamy tone, Miss Audrey, will the war end if we're completely defeated? Will we no longer have to worry about the bombardments raised and having insufficient food? Audrey looked at her deeply and said, but if that happens, you will have to change your faith. Melissa hesitated, not knowing how to respond. At this moment, a commoner curled up against the wall blurted out, I believe in the God of steam machinery. Even if facing an intense wind, I don't need to change my faith. When that happens, life would return to its original warmth and peaceful state. These worried stirred the commoners who were hiding in the shelter. They whispered to each other and discussed possible developments. There were no lack of overnight believers. To most people, faith wasn't that important compared to life. After all, a true deity would eventually still protect them. The police officers maintained the order, and shelter didn't stop the commotion from spreading. They watched coldly, some even having a hint of anticipation. However, the defeated will definitely suffer something for crueler than you can imagine. It's not something that can be summarized with just a change of faith, be it a lesson from history or a conclusion deduced from the human psyche. I mean, starts to end of 58, so stop after 57. Got it. Okay, got it. Stop after 57. All of them made Audrey more pessimistic than everyone present. She looked around and could not help but sigh inwardly. The goddess's anchors is already greatly shaken. If not for the grain support from before, it might have completely collapsed. As for what the situation meant, Audrey knew very well in her heart. She closed her eyes, tilted her head slightly, and muttered to herself silently, the battle of gods is about... Oh, shit! The battle of gods is about to begin. The final outcome was about to appear. After nodding at Melissa, Audrey turned and left the area, arriving at the entrance of the shelter. The golden retriever Susie was seated there, looking like a qualified guard. You don't seem like you plan to return. Susie now twitched as she was... What? You don't seem like you plan to return. Susie's nose twitched as she asked with a suppressed voice. Audrey had hidden herself in the shelter from the beginning of the siege that began today. Therefore, she hadn't had the time to return to her own residence in Empressboro, as the battle had decreased its intensity slightly. Earl Hall had already sent 2 people to urge her to return so that she could have so that she could head for a sanctuary for the nobles. Audrey shook her head and said with a faint smile, I have to do what I need to do. Without waiting for Susie to reply, she smiled and said, stay here on my behalf and secretly placate them. Don't let any commotions happen here. If they want to pat you, let them do so. Susie hesitated for 2 seconds before saying, all right. Whoa. Wait, no. All right. Audrey didn't say anything else. She left the shelter completely ignored by the troop of soldiers guarding the shelter. The sky outside was dark and there were many buildings that had collapsed. They burned with flames. They were about to be extinguished. The streets were empty with no carriages of pedestrians. This was completely different from what Audrey remembered of Backland. Backland was originally blue, yellow, and beige. It was lively, bustling, and full of vitality, but now it was gray, black, and scarlet. It was in shambles, disorder, and somewhat silent. Looking left and right, Audrey identified her bearings while in her hunting attire and walked towards the city of the borders. Where she wanted to do was so simple. Let me lower the volume down a smidge. What she wanted to do was simple. Join the war and do her best to help Lowen not collapse before the end of the Battle of the Gods. What the fuck? God, I need to be here for chat. Ooh, you need to be here for what chapter? Oh, we're almost there. For the 70s? Oh, we're almost there, bro. We're almost there, Liquid. Before the end of the Battle of Gods, if the winner of the Battle of Gods was the opposing side, she would use various methods such as Q, hypnosis, mental plague, and other means to prevent the soldiers, officers, and beyonders from venting their emotions, as well as reduce the damage brought by the war. Amidst the flickering flames, Audrey quickly phased through them and ran into the distance. Roasted Archipelago, City of Generosity, Bam, in a room at the top of the Cathedral of Waves, dressed in a black cloak, the Nits met the legendary cardinal of the church. Okay. The high-ranking decon of the mandated punishers, C. King John Coatman. My man, the Nits, is meeting C. King John Coatman? Damn, man. He went up in life. Glancing at the muscles that filled up the priest robe, the Nits swallowed the words he was about to say, and he deliberated for a moment before saying, I come with good intentions. For some reason, he felt that his skin was numb. Oh, he's scared? As though invisible lightning was dancing on them. Good intentions, the tall, muscular, well-defined John Coatman grunted. I had already considered the fact that the fellows from the sailor pathway are more irritable, making them incapable of telling the differences between a joke and sarcasm. Once their anger erupts, they don't even consider the overall situation, otherwise I wouldn't even need to speak like this dog shit. The Nits mumbled to himself, maintaining his smile as he explained to the Resistance's intentions. Bro, the pronunciations? Bullseye, you know, easy in his pronunciation. Wait, what did I say wrong? I haven't mispronounced anything today. What did I mispronounce today? Ow! Dog shit. What did I did I mispronounce? What? John Coatman stared at the pirates whose affiliation with the Golden Dream remained unknown and suddenly sneered. Huh? If we withdraw most of our strength, can you defend Bayam and the archipelago? If you can defend it, how are you going to guarantee that the interests of the Lowen migrants will be maintained when the Facek and Faina Potter combined Navy forces breach the defense lines? As a demigod, he was extremely certain the Sea King John Coatman had already perished. However, he didn't know who it was that was using the name Sea God, or if the entity had the ability to protect the roasted archipelago. That's a good question. Only with questions can there be a room for successful negotiations. In fact, the Nits had never thought of how the Resistance would defend against the Facek and Faina Potter after Lowen's powerhouses were transferred back to Backland. He fully believed that Gurmit Sprout and Mr. Foe behind him had the ability to protect this place. As his thoughts raced, the Nits looked at the extremely impressive Sea King and said, I will pray to my lord and ask him to protect the roasted archipelago. Oh, Sea King John Coatman narrowed his eyes and took a step forward. The aura from the tyrant pathway made the Nits involuntarily take 2 steps back. He lowered his head and prayed on the spot. Blessed of the sea and the spirit world, guardian of the roasted archipelago, the rulers of the undersea, creatures, master of the tsunamis and storms, the great Kavatua, please send down your powers to protect the roasted archipelago. Is that what I'm mispronouncing? Roasted archipelago?
John Coatman stared at the pirate whose affiliate.
No, not that.
Blessed of the sea and spirit world, guardian of the roasted archipelago.
Oh, archipelago. Oh, archipelago? Is not archipelago? It's oh my god, it's it was archipelago this whole time? I know what's an archipelago. That's an easy word. I've been saying archipelago since volume. You guys have been making me say archipelago for 1,000 chapters? No fucking way.
Blessed of the sea and spirit world, guardian of the roasted archipelago, ruler.
Archipelago. Archipelago. Ruler of the undersea. Got it. Please send down your powers to protect the roasted archipelago. We didn't do anything you did. I don't know what you're talking about. After the prayer, Danitz carefully cast his gaze out the window, but he didn't discover anything unusual. John Copeman sized up for a few seconds before saying, "Your god doesn't seem to be responding." Danitz cleared his throat and felt his heart beating like a drum. Mind blown. Dude, I'm telling you, there's some words. There are words I know how to say, but I just can't read it, or I don't know how to spell it, you know? It's weird how the mind works. At that moment, the sky outside suddenly darkened. It was as if a large number of dark clouds were flying over, bolting out the sun. Sea King John Copeman instinctively turned his head and looked out the window. He saw a shadow cast over the border between the sea and the sky. With his control of the archipelago's waters, scenes of the overall situation rapidly surfaced in the Cardinal's mind. The roasted archipelago, along with the surrounding seas, was shrouded by thick fog. It became instinct and surreal. A seabird flew past and attempted to land on the dock, but it failed to pass through it. Unable to set foot, the commoners in the archipelago continued living normally aside from noticing the brewing storms. This, John Copeman's dark pupils dilated significantly. He subconsciously turned his head to look at the sea god's blessed blazing Danitz. Danitz's mouth gaped slightly and he forgot to close it. He was shocked with not lesser than the shock Sea King experienced. A few seconds later, the fog dissipated and the shadows faded away. Everything in the roasted archipelago returned to normal. Now, bro's just choosing to be wrong. Did I say it wrong again? Wait, did I say it wrong again? Merlin? You see, I'm not lying. It's like I need to put like actual like strong like mental like thought processing. Whatever's a word. Like I need to like mentally think about it hard. Bro, did I say it wrong? What did I say wrong? Someone get Arjun to give bro a mental suggestion. Yo, bro, I need a subtle cue. Bro, I'm telling you, man, there's words I just read. And I just read it wrong, but I can say it. We need to get easy as shot caller that got a program zapping for him every wrong pronunciation. I will wear that willingly, so we can pronounce these words together, man. God damn, I gotta work on my pronunciations, man. Dog shit. No, I can't wear that. Dog shit. You actually dare to suspect Mr. Fool? Isn't this the might of Mr. Fool? John Copeman remained silent for a few seconds before saying, "I will consider your proposal carefully. I will immediately convey a meeting with the key figures in Bayam to discuss the matter. I will give you an answer in an hour." Danitz lifted his chin slightly and laughed. "I will wait patiently." With that said, he followed his instincts as a hunter and he indifferently bowed before leaving the room. Amidst the creaking sound, silver bolts of lightning lit up in the blue eyes of John Copeman, and the ancient palace above the fog climbed through the curtain back into the metal pot and sealed it again. He used the power of Sequence 1 Attender to Mysteries and stirred the power of Sephira Castle to respond, creating a shocking effect of John Copeman. In another half day, the Attender of Mysteries beyond characteristics will be separated, and the rest will be used to concoct the Miracle Invoker Potion. Yes, when it's only at the Sequence 2 level, I can attempt to use the powers of Sephira Castle to shatter it and let the beyond characteristics, such as the Scholar of Yore and the Bizarre Sorcerer, to seep out into a shorter amount of time. That will lower the risk brought by the potion. Klein mumbled before rapidly returning to the real world. He wasn't situated in the dark moors anymore, but the frozen dusk of the Giant King's court. Oh? He had entered the Giant King's court, and Derek and Colin Iliad are going there. He had entered the Giant King's court before the City of Silver's expedition team arrived in the afternoon town encampment. Under the orange light, Klein felt the degeneration and exhaustion of his body. He cast his gaze at the magnificent, beautiful buildings situated high above. The countless places in the tower still had the remnant glory of the Second Epoch, as though they were manifestations of the myths. No, it was a myth. Be careful, the City of Silver's exploration team officially took action. Klein planned on attempting to open the palace where Dark Angel Cecile was sleeping. I'm sorry, does Volume 6 go off with us fighting Dark Angel Cecile, and then some shit goes down? This way, if there were any accidents, the City of Silver's expedition team will still have time to make targeted preparations. As for Klein, it would be definitely much safer for him compared to the others since he was using a historical projection. Next chapter. Behind the fucking door. All right. Chapter 1255. Whoa. Sorry, my bad. We're on 50. We are at 250. Whoa, sorry, I said that wrong. How the hell did you backtrack your chapters? No, because I accidentally added an extra 0, so it actually said 12,000. As he had this information from the City of Silver's previous explorations, Klein knew which places were dangerous and how to avoid them. It didn't take long for him to follow the small path, pass through the waning forest, barren tunnels, and use the ancient elevator to arrive at the residence of the guards. After waiting for a while until the curtain above the great fog split into two, separating the tentative mysteries beyond a characteristic, Klein reached out to pull his past self out. He didn't know if the other kingdoms would isolate the fog of history, but at least without the Giant King's court having its owner present, no one would be able to stop his attempts. Unfortunately, this matter involved too many levels. I can't obtain any results from divination, otherwise I will feel more at ease. Klein shook his head and muttered to himself. He was in no hurry to jump into the fog of history. He first took out 2 items and handed them to his projection. One of them was a deep black wooden box. It contained the ashes of the giant guardian Grizel. Klein had never forgotten his promise. He still has them. It contained the ashes of the giant guardian Grizel. Klein had never forgotten his promise. He had originally wanted to wait for Little Sun's second exploration of the Giant King's court, which is going to happen right now, before handing him Grizel's ashes and getting him to help do the burial. However, due to the various matters, he ended up coming to the forsaken lands of the gods and entering the Giant King's court. As for Snowman's ashes, Klein planned on scattering it in the Golden Sea, and just as he was about to leave the forsaken lands of the gods, it was a sea churning with the divine blood of the ancient sun god. After handing over the urn of the black iron key from the Vice Admiral Iceberg, Klein followed his usual practice and leaped into the fog. He dashed through the fragment of light representing a time before the first epoch, and he allowed his consciousness to naturally shift to the projection he had summoned. This projection didn't hold the staff of the stars and only wore creeping hunger. This was because the palace that the Giant King lived in was still quite a distance away. There were many toll statuses blocking him, so Klein couldn't guarantee that he would reach the destination in 5 minutes. Right on the heels of that, he made the glove on his left transparent. He made his left hand transparent as he disappeared from where he was, and the next second, Klein appeared outside the guard's residence with the huge black iron key. He had teleported too far away. Yes, in the Giant King's court, it's clear that most of the powerhouses within have weakened. Only a guard acknowledged by the Divine Kingdom can perform at relatively normal standards. Beyond a power similar to teleportation have been suppressed. I can only do blink within a relatively small area. From the looks of it, even if I were to summon the Staff of the Stars, I wouldn't be able to appear outside the Giant King's palace by outlining... He can appear? I wouldn't be able to appear outside the Giant King's palace by outlining the corresponding scene in my mind, but wouldn't it be accurate? As expected of the ancient god's divine kingdom, Klein seriously observed the influence his surroundings brought him. After making a preliminary judgment, he turned and walked back to the guard's residence. Opening the wooden box in his right hand, he solemnly scattered Grizel's ashes in every corner. Oh man, I'm about to cry. He's scattering his ashes. And it could be imagined that during this period of time, in an ancient time, Grizel and the other rational giant guardians from future generations would rest, rabble, gossip, talk about music, and think of fun games to play. They didn't need to worry about food and elements. They would live every day of their lives happily. With the shaking of Klein's hand, the ashes scattered on the wall, the ground, bedside of the tables, chairs, and stone pillars. The orange light outside the window shone forever, making everything look peaceful. Damn, man, I'm getting a little tear in my eye. I feel something right now. Oh shit. When the last speck of ashes was scattered, the dusk suddenly deepened. It dyed the scattered ashes orange, becoming a part of the divine kingdom. Damn, he got what he wanted. Klein closed his eyes as though he could sense Grizel's joys. A vagrant who had been forced to leave his hometown for 3,000 years had finally returned to the place he had missed day and night. The light of the dusk softened, making Klein feel like he was less ostracized. It's equivalent to being acknowledged to a certain extent. I've become a guard that has been accepted by a number of people. Klein emanated his spirituality to confirm the changes. He didn't stay any longer. He used creeping hunger and the path scouted by the City of Silver's expedition team to constantly blink and take detours. From time to time, he would pull out the unshattered crucifix. He passed through the hall where the fateful plot was made with relatively little difficulty, and he arrived at the resistance of the Giant King's court. He saw a row of huge stone columns on the left that formed railings beyond. Oh my god, I cannot read. Beyond the railings was an orange-red gas and churning dark blue sea. Taking a deep breath, he returned to the hall that he had just exited, he reached out his hand and dragged out the marionette Uni, who hadn't been parasitized by Amon. Even if it was a historical projection, he didn't want to open the door himself, so he makes the marionette open it. Looking at the slightly dazed Uni, Klein handed the black iron key and he had tucked under his armpit over to him. He controlled Uni to leave the hall and follow the railings formed from the stone pillars to the tallest and most magnificent building in the Giant King's court. The dusk glow seemed to be corporeal as it covered the palace's surface, bringing it with a strong sense of decadence, as though the curtains have drawn on everything in the world. Lining both sides of the palace were separately steeples and spires. The grayish blue front door was covered with mysterious symbols as it stood at a height exceeding 10 meters. To the left of the door, there was a pitch black hole that was the size of an adult's fist and the height of 3 to 4 meters. Hiding it? Uni stared at it for a few seconds before raising the black iron key that resembled a 7-string guitar and inserted it into a deep crevices in front of him. It fit perfectly without leaving a single gap, okay? As a gigantic black... Man, we've had this fucking key since Volume 3. No, we've been talking about this key since Volume 3. Literally went full circle. As a gigantic black iron key entered the deep hole, Klein held his breath in a nearby grand hall, constantly preparing to remove his existence. With a click, the black iron key in Uni's hand reached at the end. It suddenly turned soft as if it had fused with the hole as it emitted grayish blue light. The various symbols labeled in patterns on the door lit up as they protruded. All the lights quickly interfered in a constructive manner, pressing down heavily into the iron chamber as it slowly opened the grayish blue palace door. The gap between the door widened when Uni's eyes suddenly reflected a turbulent, pitch black, vicious, and illusionary sea. Not good. Warning bells sounded in Klein's mind. Without any hesitation, his consciousness returned to his body as he severed the connection with the historical void projection. In the next second, his vision suddenly darkened. The left side of his head felt a sharp pain, as though something had inserted a red-hot chisel into it and kept rotating it. At the second time, he heard indistinguishable ravings that seemed to come from an era longer than ancient times. Our time. Wouldn't it be our time if it's before ancient times? Fuck, I found my place. Klein's expression instantly twisted, appearing extremely furious. He could still barely maintain his rationality, but he had no energy left to remain in the historical fragment. Oh shit. Without a sound, Klein landed in the guard residence of the Giant King's court. With a thought, he entered the world above the Grey Fog. Before undertaking such a dangerous task, he had no doubt found a reason and excuse to arrange the members of the Terror Club to pray collectively and awaken Sephiric Castle's ability to summon its master. This allowed him to skip taking 4 steps counterclockwise and recite the incantations at critical moments to return above the Grey Fog. However, just as Klein's spirit body saw the grayish-white fog, he heard a familiar roar. He felt himself rejected by Sephiric Castle, as though it had accepted an order from someone else to stop him from entering. This, in the shock, he saw a black shadow leap past him, heading straight for Sephiric Castle. It wasn't Amon. What the fuck is it? It wasn't Amon, but a shadow that exuded an aura identical to his. Subconsciously, Klein influenced the Fair Castle and made it reject the intruder. Then he succeeded. The shadow was also blocked by the grayish-white fog as well. Right on the heels of that, he and the shadow fell back into the real world at the same time. After a spirit bar returned to his body, Klein bent down in pain as he curled like a curled shrimp. The half-top hat on his head fell to the ground. I think that's the first time where Cuttlefish writes down like, oh, his hat fell down. You know him? What'd I do? Viscous. Viscous. You said viscous. It's viscous. Got it. Yeah. He took several seconds to eventually recover. He slowly straightened his body and cast his gaze on a glass window ground from the orange gems. The window reflected his current appearance with a bridge on his nose on the border. His right face was at the same level as usual, but countless objects were crawling out of his left face. So it's just his left side. Klein narrowed his eyes. He hurriedly took a deep breath to calm himself down and regain his clown powers of control. His mind outlined a clear image of his appearance. He was dressed in a black trench coat, and he had black hair and brown eyes. The right side of German Sparrow's I thought it said cute face. The right side of German Sparrow's cut face was the same as usual, while the left side had become translucent and was formed from twisting maggots. As he looked down, his neck was in a similar state. It was the same with his body that layered beneath his clothes. The edge of losing control. Man, I need to resist the inclinations towards intense madness. Why? Suddenly, he sensed something. He instinctively lowered his head and looked at his feet. it was empty. He was missing the shadow that was supposed to exist. The orange light of the evening shone through the window, but it didn't create a shadow by his side. Huh, I understand. Klein bent down and laughed uncontrollably. He suspected that the sea water that surged out from the Giant King's palace had not only drowned his marionette and historical projection, but it had also used the ladder to slice off his own shadow? Slice off his own shadow, causing his spirit to lose its completeness. He was unable to completely suppress his inclinations towards losing control. As for the shadow, which was slightly equivalent to him, it could also affect Sephara Castle. This resulted in a situation which both parties were unable to head above the Great Fog. As long as I get rid of that shadow, the problem can be solved. The corner of his right forehead twitched as he straightened his back. At that moment, the orange light that shone from the outside was dyed golden, becoming rather resplendent. It made an entire Giant King's court seem to retrograde from dusk to noon. With thought, he cast his gaze out the window as an image appeared in his mind. In front of the tallest and most magnificent building in the Giant King's court, Marionette's Uni stood there facing the door. It was dark past the door, impossible to see anything clearly. Suddenly, Uni turned around and looked down. His face was covered in shadow. The shadow that Klein lost? His face was covered in shadow, and his hair turned deep black that draped over his shoulders and curled up slightly. On his back, there were pairs of dark and illusionary wings. In the grand hall nearby, a pure shadow lower body was pressed against a stone brick, and its upper body came over in a ramrod manner. Uni betraying Klein? No, not Bunny Klein. So no Bunny Klein. We got Bunny Klein. We'll look at it. It's not. Is it Dark Angel Sasmir? But what was this whole shadow shit? It said it wasn't Amon. It wasn't Amon, but a shadow that exuded an aura identical to his. So someone at Amon's level. The only one would be Dark Angel Sasir. Yeah. So he's out. Sesamir? No, it's not. Crescent Sesamir? No? It's Sasir? No, it's not. Yeah, it's not Sesamir. Wait, Crescent Sesamir? Wait, what'd I say? Did I say Sasmir? I meant Sasrir. Sorry, not Sesamir. I meant Sasrir. Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Pronunciation. Yeah, pronunciation. My bad, guys. Oh, it says it right here. Wait, what the fuck? It's not Dark Angel Sasir. Okay, next chapter. Wait, it says it's not him. Fuck. No, my bad. I did not mean Sesamir. I was trying to. I meant Dark Angel Sasrir. Okay, but right here, actually, it says it's not Dark Angel Sasrir. The projection of Uni had been eroded by the power of the surge out from the Giant King's residence, becoming a monster that I can understand at the moment. Furthermore, it looked like it can exist for a long period of time. Perhaps there's a bit of Sasir's will involved in this. With his left hand covering his face, Klein allowed the worms of spirit to burrow the gaps in his fingers freely. When he could understand that the most was something else, he had clearly opened the palace where the Dark Angel lay slumber, but the deities and the kings of angels showed no reaction. Yes. They showed no reaction. According to Klein's imagination, when the surge sea gushed out, but be it the true creator, the god of knowledge and the wisdom, blasphemer Amon, or Amon's brother, who ultimately hid behind the scenes, they should have immediately descended or appeared to confirm that Dark Angel Sasir's present state, or snatch whatever corresponding items. To his surprise, to enter the Giant King's court remained completely silent. No external powers exerted any influence. Could it be that they are still waiting for me to enter the Giant King's residence and to come into contact with that deputy of heaven? The true creator said to meet Sasir, my spirit body and physical body haven't recovered from the corrosion, which means that the true creator's goal has yet to be achieved. As Klein's thoughts raised, he realized that he was unable to control his emotions, be it anger, sadness, worry, or depression. He couldn't help but pull the corners of his mouth and up and let out a scoff. If there's a spoilers, I won't read it. No way, hold up. The only thing he was glad about was that this didn't affect his brain. He could still think and use all sorts of beyond powers, but sometimes his madness would suddenly be aggravated. I cannot read. Aggravated, turning him rash and aggressive. I wonder if the demigod of the mind had any way to treat the situation. In any cases, the sealed artifact or beyond his characteristics that I can summon can't do it. This is a result of an incomplete spirit. If I don't resolve my severed shadows, I wouldn't be able to completely recover. However, perhaps there are methods that can allow me to temporarily return to normal. For example, create a virtual persona to make up for the incompleteness. Unfortunately, I can't enter Sephara Castle. Klein's thoughts were in a mess. The scene surfaced in his mind, gradually vanished. He then picked up Are we reading 51? Yeah, we are, right? He then picked up the half-top hat that had dropped to the ground and wore it. Then, through the huge glass window formed from the ground orange gems, he observed the changes in the Giant King's court. Unlike before, the illusory sun... Unlike before, an illusory sun appeared high in the sky, allowing the magnificent building complex situated in the frozen sunset to enjoy the sun at noon. The troll statues that stood guard in the various places seemed to be draped with a cloak weaved out of shadows. Uni, who had a pair of black illusory wings on his back in the shadows that originally belonged to Klein, jumped over the railings and glided towards him. Klein's gaze froze as he subconsciously took a few steps forward, intending to fight the enemy. But very quickly, he snapped back to senses and checked his current state. He quickly retreated to the ancient elevator, pulled the switch, and landed back in the barren tunnel. Then, with blink, he appeared near the waning forest and ran all the way to the edge of the Giant King's court. His intuition told him that in his current state, he had no means of defeating the mutated Uni, and his separated shadows. Of course, he had the confidence if it was just a ladder. When he arrived at the edge of the radiant sunlight, he turned and saw that Uni and his shadows hadn't chased after him. It was as though there was a limit to their range of activity. There was no way to leave the Giant King's residence, or should I say be too far away from Dark Angel Sasir. Just as his thought flashed through his mind, Klein saw an illusionary sun atop and leaped from the center to the west. The dusk's color once again enveloped the Divine Kingdom. Klein carefully observed all of this and was in no hurry to leave the Giant King's court. Not long after, the illusionary sun plunged into the palace where Dark Angel Sasir slumbered. Darkness became the ruler of the Giant King's court. Klein can't beat his own shadow. Cuttlefish nerfing my goat? No, we can't nerf him. No, he's gonna get a power up right now. The darkness was different from the one found on a normal night. There was no moon or starlight, only blurry shadows. Standing in the darkness, Klein had a nagging feeling that someone was clinging to him from behind. However, he clearly knew that it was an illusion and didn't turn around recklessly. A few minutes later, the illusionary sun rose up and the light of dawn disappeared in the darkness. The power that surged out from the Dark Angel's chamber had changed the Giant King's court. Despite it being an ancient divine kingdom, it really is a power that's close to that of true deity. At the very least, it controls a uniqueness, but which pathway's uniqueness would it be? Darkness? Which pathway uniqueness would it be? The generated changes include Emblazing Sun, Darkness, Degeneration, and Mutation. What are these? Blazing Sun is sun, check. Darkness is darkness. Degeneration, we've established that. True creator. Mutation. I don't remember mutation. Darkness is ever night and the goddesses have it, right? Is it? Darkness. Oh, like sleepless, dark. Got it. Okay. This is a little contradictory. It doesn't seem like the result of a single uniqueness. Do I remember? Why do I not remember this? Besides the uniqueness of the sun pathway is definitely with the eternal blazing sun. The shadow and degeneration is brought about by darkness, which is undoubtedly with the true creator. When I opened the door, I saw an illusory pitch black vicious oceans. It's related to the Chaos Sea. It's related to the Chaos Sea. Klein shook his head as he continued observing. This continued on as he waited for the City of Silver's expedition team and rendezvous. See, I'm not gonna say it wrong. Rendezvous with him. Backland at the border of the city. As soon as Audrey entered, she discovered that the fog had become unusually thick. Visibly had been reduced to 5 meters. How the howling wind swept through the fog, bringing a sense of clarity from time to time. However, it was soon filled with a surging whiteness. Audrey's eyes suddenly turned golden, allowing her to see even further out. As she carefully treaded, the fog in front of her suddenly became much thinner. At the same time, her beyond her power suffered a retrogression. Beautiful pronunciation. Thank you, thank you. The weakening of mysticism, the concepts and information previously mentioned by Mr. World flashed across her mind. Boom, boom, boom. Multiple salvos from the backland fired ahead, causing the shells to leave the trails of the red, blue, silver, or black in their way as they bombarded the enemy's bases. However, in the next second, the shells encountered invisible barriers and exploded in mid-air, making the transparent wall tremble. At this moment, a rather blurry figure appeared in the distant thick fog. He was in human form, but he was more than 10 meters tall. Whoa! 30 feet? His torso and waist each had 2 arms extending out as he emitted rich darkness. For some reason, it is a figure that seemed to arise from a legend appeared of the Fasig and Intis Alliance's forces base stirred. Every soldier and officer there seemed to have returned to their childhood. They were walking alone on the dark road with no one around them. Everything was silent. They felt uneasy deep down. The fear of the unknown stemmed from the fear of the imagination. Instantly, they broke down and turned to flee. At this moment, radiating sunlight shone on them, allowing them to see the light and bringing them courage. However, there were still a small number of soldiers who were unable to control themselves. They kept shouting, mommy, or a particular woman's name in their bids to escape the battlefield. Oh, they're calling their mom, like, oh, mommy, come help me. Not like, oh, mommy. Okay, I get it. Now I know what mommy we're talking about. Bang, bang, bang. The soldiers fell to the ground amidst the repeated gunshots. One by one, they bloomed with blood-colored flowers. They landed on the ground, turning motionless after slightly twitching. No one cared what their names were, nor did anyone know of their pasts. Right on the heels of that, under the commanding officer's orders, the invisible barrier that enveloped the Intis and Fasig allied forces was dispelled. Crimson red flaming spears were thrown out towards the low and base as though they had blotted out the sky. Just as the flaming spears approached their target, they scattered in a sudden bout of chaos. They stepped into the ground, creating one pitch black hole after another. It was the first time Audrey was seeing such a large-scale usage of beyond her powers. Momentarily stunned, she couldn't help but recall that people she knew about the roles that played in this battle. Glenn and the other young nobles had joined the army and took the roles of the officers at different ranks. They were scattered all over the web battlefield and could be killed at any moment. The magician had left Backland with Judgment's family and was hiding in a small city in East Chester County. As a middle-ranking member of MI9, Judgment was made to covertly defend against infiltration by the Beyonders from Fasig, Intis, and other countries. That's badass. The official Beyonders, led by the Star, had locked down the various cathedrals of the Church of Steam, maintaining the stability of the city. Saint Aphne and the other demigods of the Church of Evernight, the Church of Storms, and the royal family and the military began to set up the last line of defense in Backland? What? So this is it. Our last line of defense in Backland. The Sanguin had remained in... Why the fuck are the Sanguin... Bro, pick a side. The Sanguin had remained neutral the entire time. A few seconds later, Audrey gathered her thoughts and prepared to use her psychological invisibility to sneak into the enemy's camp to spread mental plague. Suddenly, her spiritual perception stirred as... Oh my god, I'm yelling. I'm so sorry. Suddenly, her spiritual perception stirred as she cast her gaze to a spot further away. In the thick fog, a rather thick and blurry tentacle wrapped around the countless silver bolts of lightning as they quickly extended to a certain location in Allied forces' bases. Sanguin is the Switzerland of our world. Hey, I like Switzerland when I went. I thought Switzerland was a very beautiful place. A feather burning with golden flames fell. In the depths of the thick fog, a huge grayish blue palm reached out, holding a silver broadsword. The fog sea away from the safe sea route, countless bolts of lightning struck the surface of the sea. Waves surged and crashed heavily. Bernadette's dawn was constantly being thrown into the sky, making it seem extremely minute under the might of the elements. It looked like it would sink at any moment. Bernadette's dawn was constantly being thrown into the sky, making it seem extremely minute under the sky of the elements. It looked like it would sink at any moment. Queen Mystic stood at the bow of the ship and calmly taking in all of this. From time to time, she would use the Emperor's new clothes and other fairy tale magic to maintain the balance of the boat. Her gaze pierced through the terrifying storm in search of the suspected primitive island. I'm sorry, does it also end with Roselle's resurrection? Because we killed William the Third. So there is no one there's no one occupying the Black Emperor pathway right now. And we know Roselle wanted to be that. There's still one holy shit. Volume 6 ends with him coming back. Wait, not Williams. George Russell is from F1. Not George Russell. I meant George the Third. Yeah. George Russell. George the Third. Sorry, I was thinking of Mercedes fucking from F1. Her gaze pierced through the terrifying storm in search of the suspected primitive island. After some recognizing Colin Iliad led Derek Lovia and the other members of the expedition team on the out of the afternoon town camp. They follow the path on the mountain and enter the oh shit, they're here. They enter the Giant King's court. I wonder who they're gonna run into. What surprised them was that the frozen dusk had changed. Bright sunlight illuminated every corner. Where's the helper you invited? Colin Iliad controlled his alarm and turned to ask Derek Berg. Just as Derek was about to speak, he suddenly saw a figure walk out from a half-collapsed tower. Oh shit, he's here. The figure wore a black trench coat and a silk top hat. This is such a badass entrance. What the fuck? He's like, he's walking in. The figure wore a black trench coat and a silk top hat. The right side of his face was cut, cold and stiff. The left side of his face had transparent wriggling maddox that kept crawling. Ooh, shit, dude. Oh, that is so fucking hype. Oh, shit, Mr. Clown. I'm sorry. Is he calling himself Mr. Clown? What? Mr. Clown. Yeah, except he looks bad right now. He looks fucked up. Yeah, he looks fucked up, but he's still badass. He's still badass. Oh, man. Mr. Clown. All right. I'm fucking hyped. When they saw the figure... What, the update? Yeah, okay, we're good. When they saw the figure walking out from behind the collapsed tower, the members of the City of Silver expedition team immediately put up a defensive stance, ready to attack or provide any defense. In their eyes, the man wearing a strange clothes and a strange hat was equivalent to a monster, a particularly terrifying one at that. Every normal Beyonder would view themselves as monsters after being subject to such a physical mutation. Upon seeing the reactions of the half-giant, Klein grinned widely and said with a beaming smile, "Hello everyone, I'm German Sparrow. All of you should be glad that I can still control myself. Otherwise, you would have lost your minds because you looked at me directly." Aura farming. As he spoke, the transparent maggots on his left side of his face and neck were still squirming slowly. Beneath the clothes on the left side of his body, they were protruding marks that gently squirmed. Ugh! A monster! The members of the City of Silver who were not demigods were increasingly certain of their own judgment. You are the world. No, Mr. Sparrow. Derek Berg finally managed to recognize Mr. World, who had met once. Oh, shit. Klein raised his left palm and covered his left cheek. He smiled and said, "Life is always about encouraging the unexpected." Good for him. Without waiting for Little Sun to respond, he paused and said, "I have already opened the door to the Giant King's residence. This brought about some accidents, causing the Divine Kingdom to change. The door to the Giant King's residence has already been opened." The grizzled and scared Colin Iliad narrowed his eyes like, how? He subconsciously looked up at the magnificent building shrouded in golden sunlight. However, due to the distance, he couldn't see the situation. Light seeker. Whoa. There's a lot of light. Oh, okay, we're getting close. However, due to the distance, he couldn't see the situation at the apex. However, to have the frozen sunset become replaced by the blazing sun at noon had explained many things. Klein's gaze swept across the City of Silver's chief and elder Livia, who was dressed in a black armor of the 6-member council. He then looked at the sun and continued with a smile. "This has also brought me some negative effects, just as you have already noticed." At this moment, he clapped his hands and said in a commanding tone, like an adult instructing children, "All right, Beyonders below the level of demigod are to fall back. The Giant King's court and the anomaly is not a place you can enter." The members of the expedition team, apart from Colin, Derek, and Livia, felt an inexplicable sense of fear as they cast their gazes at the chief. Colin Iliad remained silent for a few seconds before turning to them and saying, "Leave the Giant King's court and wait at the periphery." What? They came all the way here. Let them go in. They got it. If you see the signal, immediately act according to the plan. This hand-picked expedition team members were not only strong themselves and close to in strength to demigod, but they also had different powers, sealed artifacts that complemented each other. Even if they were facing a saint, they weren't without hope when it came to defeating one. However, in the City of Silver's original plan, they weren't the main forces. Therefore, Therefore, Colin Iliad had led them here in hopes that when he and the other demigods shaved off the hidden enemies, these team members would be able to shine. They could then use the different sealed artifacts to deal with different incidents, preventing the entire team from suffering from any weaknesses. Huh. Now with the powerhouse help from the outside joining them and the fact that Giant King's court had indeed experienced some sort of anomaly, no one knew what they would encounter if they went deeper. With the utmost caution, Colin Iliad believed that Gerben Spur's suggestion wasn't a problem. Furthermore, he had said with his own selfish thoughts, he didn't want members other than the demigods to suffer any unnecessary risks or meaningless casualties. Therefore, he agreed to the opinion of the monster-like powerhouses. When the time came for an opportunity to show itself, oh my back, he, Livia, and Derek would be able to give a signal and let the team members rush over a cleared path to provide reinforcements. As for the entire team beyond our powerhouses not being able to deal with different situations due to it collectively becoming relatively monotonous, Colin Iliad was in 2 words since the former shepherd Livia was around. The members of the expedition team who weren't demigods exchanged looks and hesitated for a moment. In the end, they still chose to listen to Colin Iliad. Yes, Your Excellency. At the same time that they entered, they gave Derek Burge a deep look as though they were trying to remind their chief to be careful of sequence 4 demigods. There's light behind easy. Let there be light. Okay, all right, that was pretty hype. To be careful of this sequence 4 demigod, he actually knew a living monster like powerhouse. Oh yeah, dude, Derek knows all the big shots. Let me read the sentence again. At the same time they answered, they gave Derek Burke a deep look as though they were trying to remind their chief to be careful of this sequence 4 demigod. He actually knew a living monster like powerhouse. This was very suspicious to the residents of City Silver, who had barely seen any outsiders. Sensing their companions' obvious distrust, Derek's heart ached as his eyes nearly welled up in tears. Oh, he's about to cry meeting him. He's like, oh, Mr. World, it's you. Welled up in tears, but eventually he didn't make any excuses. He maintained his silence and straightened his back. After the other members of the expedition team retreated from the Giant King's court, Klein smiled and pointed at the 2 demigods. Let me guess, you must be the chief of the City of Silver, the former demon hunter, the present Silver Knight, Colin Iliad. You are the Hanged Man's believer, Black Knight Livia, who had helped him shepherd. Livia's gray eyes, which were hidden behind her visor, narrowed. She's wearing a visor? You really look like a clown, the Hanged Man. Upon hearing Mr. World's words, Derek almost doubted his ears. He even imagined that Elder Livia had something to do with Mr. Hangman, but he quickly remembered the exact image of the fallen creator, a naked man hanging upside down on a cross. Oh, he's like, wait, wrong Hanged Man. Yeah, Derek, wrong Hanged Man. Mr. World used the Hanged Man to refer to the fallen creator. Elder Livia chid him for being a light. Derek, who had just succeeded 2 meters, and damn, he's tall, just exceeded 2 meters in height, nodded thoughtfully as he praised Mr. World Guts from the bottom of his heart. He actually dared to give a true deity a nickname and even said it out loud in front of his follower. Colin Iliad looked at German Sparrow and then at Livia, unable to tell who was right or wrong. He calmly said, let's continue moving forward. He had already pulled out the 2 swords on his back and allowed them to be blanketed with the dawn's glow. What a badass! No problem. With a smile, Klein turned around and walked to the left of a huge stone staircase with the 3 demigods of the City of Silver. After walking for a while, they saw the familiar rugged pathways. On one side of the road was a towering cliff, and on one other side was an afternoon sun-soaked bottomless cloud. At this moment, Klein and company felt the vibrations on the ground. They saw large amounts of illusory pitch-black gases surging out from deep within the golden cloud. With a whoosh, the rugged pathway collapsed, falling into the dark water surface. Beneath the water surface that seemed to be an invisible maelstrom lurking. It collapsed. There's no way out. Klein bent down, laughing out loudly, making Colin, Derek, and Livia nerves tense up. It took Klein a few seconds to regain control of his motions. He straightened his body and took out a piece of white paper from his pocket with a smile plastered across his face. He folded it into a plane. Phew. He blew at the head of the paper plane, swung his arms, and threw it towards the cloud that had been devoured by the darkness. At the same time, the glove on his left hand was covered with slippery fish scales. Upon seeing the scene, the originally confused Colin Iliad nodded slightly before casting his gaze at the flying paper object. A violent wind stirred as it carried the paper plane forward in flight for a few seconds. Then it suddenly dissipated, and the likes of a stone, it rapidly plummeted into the dark clouds without causing any ripples. From the looks of it, the flying is useless. Klein turned halfway around and smiled at Derek and company. Livia didn't respond as she released a translucent soul that enveloped a piece of gravel. In the blink of an eye, that piece of rock disappeared from its original spot, blinking to a spot above the dark clouds. Following that, it fell down uncontrollably and sank into the clouds. Teleport doesn't work either. Oh shit, nothing worked. Ref, do something. Go. What? Huh? No? Teleport doesn't work either, Livia said in a slightly deep voice. As Klein pressed at his abdomen, he bent down and chuckled before saying, it looks like we can only enter through the main entrance. Derek immediately turned around and was about to head back when Colin, Iliad, and Livia looked at each other and nodded indiscriminately. The 4 demigods quickly returned to the huge grayish-white stone staircase and looked up. Above the flight of silent stairs, which had very high steps, the majestic city walls were covered with burn marks. There were even arrows shafted as thick as ordinary trees. In the middle of the city of wall was a door that was tens of meters tall. It was grayish blue in color, and there were golden nails embedded on its surface. On both sides of the door stood a guard that stood at 6 meters tall at a domineering manner. They wore exquisite silver full-body armor, one holding a greatsword, the other a huge axe. Behind their visors was an orange glow. Silver Knight. There were 2 Silver Knights. That's kind of strong. Without wasting any time, Colin Iliad quickly retreated his gaze and said to Gerben Sparrow, "I'll hold back one of the Silver Knights, quickly finish off the other one." Ooh! He's like, "You're strong. You take out the other one. Quickly finish off the other one." Oh shit. He wasn't very sure of Gerben Sparrow's strength, but from his admiration and respect that he had sensed for Derek Burke, as well as the fact that he had opened up the residence of the Giant King, he determined that this demigod who was blessed by the fool was no weaker than him. Dang, Colin giving Klein the respect he deserves. Oh, no weaker than him. Under such circumstances, whether it was Gerben Sparrow or Colin Iliad, it wasn't difficult for them to quickly kill a Silver Knight guard with the help of Livia and Derek. After all, they weren't living demigods, but a special statue without any intelligence. Just as Colin Iliad finished his sentence, he saw Gerben Sparrow bend his back and laugh out loud. "Why do you care so much about these two? Ooh, shit! Why do you care about these 2 toys? If they were still alive and could think real Silver Knights, I would definitely be as cautious as you are. But now, what? This cocky motherfucker. Watch." As he spoke, Klein used his left hand, which had many worms of spirit crawling about, to press down on his top hat. He straightened his body and briskly walked out up the stairs. Then he was surrounded by strong winds as he approached the main door of the Giant King's court. During this process, he casually raised his right hand and shook it a few times as if he was stretching his wrist or grabbing the air. At the end of the last action, Klein's shoulders sank slightly as if it had frozen, but nothing appeared in the void. Colin Iliad originally wanted to have an understanding of Gerben Sparrow's strength, so he didn't stop him. He only signaled for Livia to follow to back him up if he made any mistakes. However, at that moment, he's turning them into marionettes. He suddenly slowed down. He frowned slightly as he had caught the scent of something. As for Derek, he looked at him with slight admiration. He believed that Mr. World could quickly finish off the guards. I assume he's turning them into marionettes. Honor is the excuse we created to shame the strong. Honor. Damn. It's all about honor, man. Honor's noble. Oh, it's respect. Chapter 1253. Chapter 1253. I wish you well. Only when Klein was about to reach the end of the flight of the stone steps, the 2 Silver Knights guards outside the Giant King's court reacted. They turned their heads as the orange glow behind their visors flashed twice, as though it was confirming the identity of the visitor. Furthermore, they had a moment of confusion. Half of Klein's face was normal, as if the other half was terrifying. The right side of his mouth curled up exaggeratedly. The transparent maggots on his left slowly twisted, revealing a frightening and indifferent smile. Thud. With the right foot crossing the final step, he arrived at the platform where the Giant King's court was located. Suddenly, a silvery white crack appeared on Klein's forehead as countless silver rays emitted from his body. Oh shit, you sure? Wait. Now you have to go to 57. Fuck. I got 1 more hour, guys. I can make it. No excuses. I can make it. Only when Klein was about to reach the end of the flight of the stone steps, the 2 Silver Knight guards outside the Giant King's court react. They turned their heads at the orange glow behind their visors flashed twice, as though it was confirming the identity of the visitor. Furthermore, they had a moment of confusion. Half of Klein's face was normal, and the other half was terrifying. The right side of his mouth curled up exaggeratedly. The transparent maggots on his left slowly revealed a frightening and indifferent smile. Thud. With his right foot crossing the final steps, he arrived at the platform where the Giant King's court was located. Suddenly, a silvery white crack appeared on Klein's forehead as countless silver rays emitted from his body. His entire body instantly shattered into pieces of flesh and blood. Those fragments fluttered up and quickly thinned and faded, turning into a paper shred. Klein in his top hat and black trench coat appeared one after another in different spots. However, they were all ripped apart by the silver sword beams. Some of them degenerated into illusions, while others turned into paper figurines. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared outside of the main door of the Giant King's court, where 2 guards had disappeared. It was a huge doll dressed in a dark and complicated long dress with evil vines wrapped around him, Renette Tinker. While Klein climbed up the stone steps, the person he summoned was none other than Miss Messenger. However, she had appeared in a wraith form, so Colin, Iliad, Livia, and Derek didn't see her. At this moment, the 2 Silver Knights who had concealed their evil intentions were hiding with the help of the light, were chasing Klein out of instinct, they had already exposed their whereabouts after the Angel Level Powerhouse prolonged observation. Renette Tanker bright red eyes immediately reflected a seemingly blank area. There was a flash of light and a white rabbit suddenly jumping out of nowhere. It bounced around and circled the area, its eyes abnormally vaped. Immediately following that, Miss Messenger took a step forward and disappeared. In another area, the remaining knight in his silvery armor appeared. His actions turned stiff and slow. He had been possessed by a wraith. Klein, who had used himself as bait, stopped blinking. He pressed his hand to his chest and gave a very ceremonial bow. I found the two of you. I wish you well. He straightened his body and raised his right hand and snapped his fingers. Boom. The white furred rabbit suddenly exploded, its flesh splattering all over the ground. Then he walked towards the Silver Knight guard, who tried his best to struggle, but to no avail. When the two figures crossed each other, Renette Tinker historical projection returned to the fog of history. While the Silver Knight followed closely behind Klein and very obediently returned to the edge of the stone steps with him. He had already become Klein's marionette. Holy shit. We can enter. Look at that. We got a new marionette, just like that. We can enter. Klein smiled as he said to Colin and the others at the bottom of the stone stairs. Derek's eyes lit up as he inwardly marveled. Mistworld is really powerful. He managed to finish off 2 Silver Knight guards single-handedly so quickly. Colin Iliad turned his head to glance at Livia. From her gaze, he could sense her heavy emotions. The City of Silver's chief had no change in expression. He held the 2 swords that reflected the light of dawn and suddenly walked up the stone steps. He came to Klein's side and whispered, "Mutant?" Klein pressed down the worm spirit that formed his left eyes and smiled without answering. After Derek and Livia walked up the stairs, he found the 4 demigods and the marionette turned and arrived at the main door of the Giant King's court. During this process, Klein stowed away the Silver Knight bionic characteristic that had seeped out from the rabbit. This was a reward from Renette Tinker. According to the agreement between him and the angel, the spoils of war that Klein had obtained from the summoning of the historical projection would be split equally with Miss Messenger. That's a good deal. Renette Tinker took the bionic characteristics while Klein obtained a Silver Knight marionette. He looked up at the main door and made a Silver Knight guard who was much taller than him take a few steps forward and insert the sword into the ground. Then the Silver Knight bent down and stretched out his hands and pressed the door that was dozens of meters of tall. After a heavy screeching sound, the door with golden nails slowly opened. At this moment, the sun in the sky leaped and the entire Giant King's court froze in an orange-red dusk. The huge door opened faster and faster, and the scenes inside was gradually revealing the Klein and company. A grayish-white figure was covered in orange-red light. Countless stairs extended from behind the door all the way to the tallest and most magnificent residence of the Giant King. On the way, there were no obstacles. There were places and towers on both sides. Giant statues covered in iron-colored armor stood in front of the different buildings, guarding the path that led to the resistance of the gods. "It's time for you to perform." Klein turned his head to the side and gave an exaggerated smile to Colin, Iliad, and Livia. Damn. The former demon hunter Colin nodded slightly without any objections. Behind Livia, an illusionary figure covered in silver armor with dark red eyes that was several meters tall appeared. Pa. The giant statue on both sides of the Divine Kingdom staircase emitted a silvery white beams as they emitted shattering sounds. The silver flowers that bloomed kept spreading upwards as if they were welcoming the guests. Before long, the 3 silver knights, Colin, Iliad, the soul grazed by Livia, and the marionettes controlled by Klein, cleared out the Giant King statue guarding the Divine Kingdom staircase, leaving only the area closest to the Giant King's residence. They didn't attempt it out of caution. At that moment, the 2 figures flew out of the Giant King's palace and slid towards the 3 silver knights. One of them had a shadowed face, black curly hair and reached his shoulders, and a pair of black wings on its back. The other was a pure shadow and distorted to the sides from time to time. There were Uni, who had mutated at some point in time, and Klein shadows, who were both under the influence of the Dark Angel. And the battlefield with a thick fog, a layerish gray-white dragon scale suddenly appeared on Audrey's body. Oh shit, POV change. This was a result of her seeing something that she shouldn't see. Who? Even with the fog blocking her view, high-level creatures and angels' levels could still corrupt and damage living beings that saw them. As the demigod inspected her pathway, Audrey immediately retracted her gaze and calmed her mind to control herself from losing control. As her thoughts raced, she took a few steps back and, using her psychological invisibility to hide in the thick fog, she was in no hurry to infiltrate the Intis and Phasic allied force camps. She was waiting for an opportunity, one that she believed would definitely appear. Time passed by slowly that Audrey imagined that it had stopped. After an unknown period of time, she finally... Fight music? Oh, shut the fuck up with Audrey? What? Really? After an unknown period of time, she finally saw the fog over the Allied forces' base turn dark, like the sun plunging past the horizon. Night had begun to rule this world. Let me raise the volume a bit. Silently, the Entis-facing soldiers and officers closed their eyes and fell asleep. This included many other Beyonders. Audrey, who was hiding not far away, also fell asleep. However, as a dreamwalker who had been cued in advance, she managed to stay lucid. Oh, is she gonna put she's gonna put a psychological cue on them in their sleep? Then, without knowing how long the opportunity would last, she used dream traversal to enter the interphasic Allied Forces base. She walked among the soldiers and secretly left behind the seeds for a... Oh my god, what? No fucking way! Audrey is casting mental plague on a fucking Phasic Allied base? What? That's so bad. She's a fucking queen. What a badass. This plague could make the infected panic, fluster, and break down emotionally. It will be difficult to be placated with normal methods. Make them kill each other. Oh, man. It was difficult to be placated with normal methods, huh? The sound of a horn pierced through the gaps between reality and dream, shattering the hazy world and awakening the soldiers and officers. Audrey didn't hesitate. At the instant before the dream completely shattered, she traversed to the other end of the camp, far away from the group that had been planted the seeds of mental plague. And the next second, the dream world completely collapsed, forcing her back into reality. She appeared at the borders of Phasic Allied Forces base. Thud. A silvery white beam lit up, exploding beside Audrey, tearing apart the fog. Audrey didn't panic because being attacked was... She's... What the fuck? She's... Dude, this got real really quick. I thought Audrey the whole time, I'm just Mr. Fool. Oh, hey, wait. I didn't think she'd be getting into the front lines. Audrey didn't panic because being attacked was within her expectations. After entering into Phasic Allied Forces camp, she knew that her psychological invisibility was very likely to be seen through others using other clues, such as not being able to completely conceal her malice. Therefore, apart from her psychological invisibility, she had also used similar techniques in Hand of Horrors disorder to create another fake version of herself to mislead the possible attackers. In other words, there was still a layer of illusion hidden under her psychological invisibility, and the facts prove that Audrey's understanding of the enemy was correct. The fake version of her had indeed encountered a sudden attack, so the real her is good right now. Taking this opportunity, she retreated into the depths of the fog. Then a grayish-white dragon that was still in human form appeared. It had mysterious and three-dimensional symbols engraved on its huge scales. They were infiltrating inwards and extending outwards as though they were interweaving into something indescribable. Something that didn't belong to reality would cause one's mind and go into a frenzy and distort their thoughts just by looking at it. She's a fucking badass demigod, man. I keep forgetting she's a demigod. At the same time, a figure dressed in a Phasic general's attire, At the same time, a figure dressed in a Phasic general's attire appeared at the spot where Audrey was standing. His face, neck, and palm was covered in a silver armor, giving off a cold feeling. Uni and Klein's shadows landed on the platform, covered in orange light. The three silver knights retreated and returned to Derek and Klein's side. Klein raised his hand to cover his left cheek and laughed at the shadow and Uni. It looked like you can't leave the area. He took a few steps forward and spread out his palm. He then tisk and said, "What a pity. The way you won't be able to hit me." Bang. The shadow opened its mouth and released an air cannon. I like how we just switch between these two POVs when we're fighting. That is so cool. So Klein raised his left hand, covered his left cheek, and laughed at the shadow and Uni. What a badass. So fucking... The shadow... Oh, wait. Oh, I thought Klein shot the air cannon. No. The shadow, Uni the shadow, opened its mouth and released an air cannon. This chapter is called Exaggerated. I'm thinking of Exaggerated Smile, ending of volume 1. Okay. Sorry. Oh, that wording is a little reminiscent. Okay. Chapter 1254 is called Exaggerated. Bang! When the shadow blasted an air cannon forward, Klein acted as though he had sensed it ahead of time. His body jerked backwards as he somersaulted into the air, landing steadily several steps away. During this process, his right hand continued to pressing down on the half-top hat on his head, making him seem rather relaxed. Seeing that Uni and the shadow didn't attempt to chase and continue their attacks, the smile on his face became even more obvious. It's really impolite to interrupt others while they're speaking. I want to discuss how to deal with you in front of all of you, but I can only avoid that now. As he spoke, his left face, which formed from a cluster of transparent maggots, trembled twice as if he was trying to wink at his former marionette and his former shadow. Then, with a beaming smile on his face, he walked back to calling Elia, Derek, and Livia and shrugged. The owners... There's Uni... Oh! There's Uni and the shadow. Oh, shit. I thought Uni became the shadow when it said, like, the black wings came up behind him. Got it. There's a shadow and... Oh, yeah, you're right. The shadow took his form? No, wait. No. I was thinking of the curtain from back then. How, like, the curtain took, like, Klein's silhouette. when he formed. Okay, sorry, separate. Shadow and Uni. Then, with a beaming smile on his face, he walked back to Colin and Iliad, Derek and Lovia, and shrugged. The owner of this place aren't welcoming us. We can only head out and discuss how to resolve the problem them. Colin and Iliad didn't think lowly of this exaggerated powerhouse just because he didn't seem capable of controlling his emotions. This is because he had shown his expertise and meticulousness towards detail when handling the previous matters. This wasn't something a demigod who had lost his mind could do. Alright, the City of Silver's chief responded to Klein's suggestions. Of course, Derek had no objection, with Lovia remaining silent and didn't saying a word. Yeah, but send it in the spoiler chat first. Oh, just to check it. Yeah. Hence, the 4 demigods and the Silver Knight marionettes retreated their steps as they walked out of the Giant King's court door. And Klein got the Silver Knight armored guard to pull the huge door and slowly close it up. It appeared like a very polite gesture. Throughout the entire process, Uni, who had layers of black wings on his back and pure shadow, just stood watching. They didn't attempt to stop him, as though an invisible wall that restrained their movements. After a while, the dust dissipated and the darkness descended. All the way to the light of dawn is to illuminate everything. In the quiet, dead world, a ray of light finally rose, bringing with it the long-awaited dawn. At this moment, Uni and the shadows heard knocking sounds at the door of the Giant King's court. Someone was knocking on the door. Knock, knock, knock. After this continued a few more times, the door let out a creaking sound as it opened heavily. Wearing a black trench coat, Klein maintained a smile on the right side of his face as he entered the Giant King's court first. He walked up the stairs step by step, and the other demigods, along with his marionette, following one step behind. After reaching the end of the hallway, Klein stopped and said to Uni and the shadow, who were more than 10 meters away, "Please forgive me for not waiting for you to come in. Perhaps it's because this spot is too far away from the main door, so you didn't hear my knocking. As you know, as a gentleman, I only know how to use my fingers to strike, not slap with my palms." The moment he finished speaking, Uni, who hadn't spoken since the beginning, spoke. "Next, you'll deal with the shadow by yourself and let the people of the City of Silver hold me back?" What? Oh, Klein let out a loud nasal grunt while wearing an exaggerated smile, as though he was waiting for Uni to give further explanation. What the fuck? Why is Uni speaking all of a sudden? As waiting for him to give further explanations? At the same time, he raised his left hand and pressed his face. The transparent and twisted maggots beaming to squirm about, some boring and others crawling out and quickly completing Exaggerated. Completing an exchange. With a shadow over his face, Uni, with his black, slightly curly hair, then reached his shoulders, continuing in a deep voice, "You didn't summon a projection from historical void in advance because you know that shadow can summon the projection of the Staff of Stars and simulate the powers of an angel of time. It will accelerate the flow of time and disperse your angel helpers?" Similarly, he didn't make any preparations because of the same reason, and if you summon a saint that can last longer, he can do the same. Both of you offset. Oh shit. Both of you offset each other. I hate playing cards with myself. Klein nodded heavily, expressing his agreement, and laughed out loud. Uni, whose face was blurry, glanced at him at the 3 demigods of the City of Silver. "Therefore, you turned the Silver Knight Guardian the door into the marionette, planning on using it to chip the tip of the balance. This problem is hot, not mine. He actually doesn't have a target to turn into a marionette, or perhaps why don't you sacrifice yourself?" The corners of Klein's mouth curled up as he said to his former marionette, Uni. Uni retracted his gaze and turned to examine Colin, Iliad, Derek, and Lovia. "You and the shadow cancel each other out. The prerequisites for using a marionette to win is that they can hold me back." Just as he said that the two shoulders of the marionettes that had been corrupted by the powers of the sleeping dark angel squirmed as a head grew out of each. The 3 heads were covered in shadows and had a black curly hair that reached his shoulders. However, they gave people the feeling that only one was young and the other old. Before Klein and the demigods could react, Uni's right body suddenly tore apart, causing the aged head to take away the third of his body. The body that split apart rapidly squirmed and instantly became complete. On the shadow over the head surface, a pair of eyes protruded with vertical pale golden pupils. Suddenly, the magnificent staircase leading to the ancient god's residence collapsed, turning into a desolate moor. At the end of the moor was a pitch-black city of overgrown with weeds, City of Silver. Derek's heart tightened upon seeing such a realistic scene. He was worried that the unknown enemy would drag him and the other demigods to the City of Silver and destroy it. As for Lovia, her gaze was frozen and her body trembled. When Uni grew 2 heads, it was as if she could sense the aura of an absolute high-leveled entity. Colin Iliad surveyed his surroundings and crossed his 2 swords that were covered in the light of dawn behind being pushing them out. He said in a deep voice, "This is fake?" At this moment, Klein covered his mouth with his left hand that was made of transparent maggots. He yawned and asked Uni's main body with a smile, "Will you be stronger in dreams?" Or can you cross the boundary and land an attack? Yes, if it were me, I would definitely consider using a dream to lure the enemy into entering my attack. The moment he said that, the desolate moor and the distant castle dissipated at the same time. The magnificent staircase, which was illuminated by the light of dawn, appeared once again. At this moment, the left side of Uni's body was torn away. The young head had taken away a third of his flesh. The shadow covering his face was quickly replaced by a resplendent golden light. Golden light? Light seeking? It was as if there were two miniature suns in his eyes. The sun! Klein first voiced a question before laughing so hard that he couldn't straighten his back. You want to use the unshadowed crucifix, the unshadowed domain, to break through the Silver Knight's light concealment. Yes, we have 3 Silver Knights on our side. This is worthy of your attention, but have you considered the feelings of shadow? You only think of yourself. He's only a shadow, so you have to consider how weakened he would be in the unshadowed domain. At this point, Klein laughed even louder. Even the transparent worms of spirit crawling on his left face sped up with movements. The fuck that Klein is just laughing, man. Also, you have thought of the beyond powers of the corruption, degeneration, and darkness. Have you seriously considered the negative effects of the unshadowed domain will bring you? After laughing, Klein straightened his back and asked seriously, how shall I address you now? Nini? Uni, whose main body was still covered in shadows, slowly took a deep breath and said, if you had chosen the hunter pathway, you would definitely be stronger than you are now. Oh. You would definitely be stronger than you are now. Before he could finish his sentence, the layers of black wings on his back suddenly spread out. They kept expanding, covering the sky and wrapped towards the magnificent staircase. Faint shadows immediately covered the air. Then Uni directly crossed the invisible boundary and descended in front of Colin, Iliad, Lovia, and Derek. He actually had the means to break through the obstruction. The young him, who had split off and off as the sun saint, immediately raised his arms. The light of the dawn turned blazing hot, illuminating every corner of the magnificent staircase, leaving no shadows. Nothing could hide within. Unshadowed domain. However, the shadows around him didn't fade as the dark wings that enveloped Uni body blocked out pure sunlight. As for the shadows that seemed to be covered in cloak, although it was much dimmer, it didn't show any signs of weakness. At the same time, Uni split off aged body pushed out his right palm. A violent but illusory gust of wind appeared around him, carrying with it an invisible multicolored intent that gushed towards Klein and the Silver Knight marionette. Mind deprivation. It could awe the target, making him feel fear, show signs of frenzy, or lose a portion of rationality. And now, because Klein's spirit was incomplete, he's on the brink of losing control. He couldn't even control his emotions and reactions very well. If he were to suffer the effects of mind deprivation, there was a high chance that he would lose control on the spot and break down into a monster. What the fuck? Uni understood what had happened to him and understood his weaknesses. The moment he launched the attack, he allowed the spectator saint to use an area of effect attack that Klein would find difficult to defend against and find unbearable. The strong winds that were tainted with all kinds of emotions and will instantly engulfed Klein. However, half of the crazy adventurer, who had half a normal body and half a terrifying body, didn't show any signs of warped expressions, manifestation of godhood, or physical breakdowns. Instead, his exaggerated smile, right eye, became extremely calm. While waiting for the City of Silver's expedition team, he had already summoned Miss Messenger and got her to make up a virtual persona that stemmed from his lampooning. Clown-like character, allowing his spirit to become complete for a certain amount of time. This was the reason why he appeared relatively rational when he left the guard's residence, only to appear exaggerated and crazy when he rendezvoused with the City of Silver's expedition team. Furthermore, this virtual persona could also withstand several attacks from the mind domain. Oh, so we're chill. We're good. The coldness in his eyes quickly faded away. The corners of his right eyes curled up, becoming symmetrical with a curled worm of spirit that crawled out of his left. This was a sincere smile. All right. Chapter 1257 is called Mocking Himself. As a smile of sincerity appeared on Klein's face of the spectator saint that Uni had split suddenly cracked open. The silver cracks were all over the place, interweaving with each other, appeared extremely chaotic. Klein sized up the opportunity and used his Silver Knight Marionette's silver sword to condense... Oh, don't look at my feet. To condense a silver rapier to attack him. A sharp light shot out, dicing the figure into countless small pieces. However, these small blocks were abnormally illusionary with zero corporealness. Okay. The spectator saint had used the techniques of psychological invisibility to create an illusion concealing his existence. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Easy fitness economy? I know, man. I should be charging for that. Freak! Get out of here, man. That's the last time. Wait. Oh, shit. My bad. Okay, I won't do that. The spectator saint had used the technique of psychological invisibility to create an illusion concealing his existence. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Silver beams of light either blazing towards the spectator saint that Uni had split off or directly leaped out from the target's location, erupted from within. The spectator saint relied on the speed and agility that a powerful body brought. He constantly changed his position and dodged, preventing himself from getting injured, as he had a precise understanding and control of his psyche and mind. Klein's intuition for danger preventing an image from forming in his mind. So it was... Wait, I'm not following. So it was... I need to slow down now. So it was difficult for Klein to predict his actions. Therefore, Klein couldn't let the silver rapier lay in wait and strike out where he had appeared. Tap, tap, tap. The huge knight, who was covering in solid silver armor, held his broadsword and charged at his target as though he could topple a mountain. Due to the existence of the unshadowed domain, Klein's silver knight marionette was unable to hide himself using the light. He could only directly attack. Upon seeing this, spectator saint's body suddenly swelled, turning into a hideous grayish white-scaled dragon that was covered in shadows, a manifestation of godhood. The dragon's body was huge, its gray scales firm, its claws were very powerful, and it managed to block the silver knight's slash. Bang, 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 bang. The giant and the giant dragon smashed through the brick rocks of the ancient divine kingdom, causing the palace to collapse. It was a mess. Klein maintained his exaggerated smile and seriously controlled his marionette to ignore Shadow. No, he still did some level of interference. He controlled the spirit body threads of himself, the marionette, the City of Silver Chief, Lovia, and Little Sun, preventing them from becoming controlled by the Shadow. Oh, good call. From time to time, he would reach out his hand and assume the historical projection that Shadow was attempting to summon. This effectively canceled out both party efforts. Oh, because if both are trying to summon or take over, they just cancel out. What? Both party efforts. Apart from that, Klein didn't even glance at Shadow. Shadow wandered for a while before opening its mouth helplessly and making a bang sound. An air cannon shot out and struck the Silver Knight marionette before exploding. Amidst the rumbling sounds, the marionette only shook slightly before returning to normal. The silver armor he wore didn't show a single crack. Upon seeing this scene, Klein laughed out loud, giving a feeling that he was about to bend over in a fit of laughter. However, he could not be aware of how weak his attacks and defenses were. When the two core skills of controlling spirit body threads and summoning the historical void projections were rendered ineffective. Yeah, like what else does he got? He ain't got shit left. He's cooked. Shadow, who had no marionettes, could only watch from the side, be it air cannon, flame controlling, illusion creation, or the clown's compatibilities. They were all just embellishments or support. Likewise, Klein didn't attack Shadow because he knew how frustrating it was to deal with paper figurine substitutes, flaming jump, damage transfer, and illusion creation. He knew that there was no way he could deal with the other party in such a short period of time. He might as well let him be a member of the live audience. After all, he couldn't affect the battle. Upon hearing the mocking laughter, the pitch black shadow froze for a moment before pondering forward its approach. Klein and targeted him with attacks. On the other side, when Uni and Shrew form landed in front of the three demigods of the City of Silver, Colin Iliad quickly glanced at Derek before looking away. He crossed his swords, forming a cross that blocked the path ahead. While doing this, the City of Silver closed, tore apart as he rapidly expanded muscles, show off. And the blink of an eye, Colin Iliad had turned into a giant that was nearly 18 feet tall. That was 18 feet tall. His body was grayish blue and his muscles were bluish black. He was a ripped giant. There was a dark crack on his forehead that seemed to be capable of attracting the souls around him. And his eyes were gone. Oh my god, I'm gone. Oh, you sleep last night, man. And his eyes were gone. Every inch of the giant skin and flesh contained immense power, infinite mystery, and a strange spiritual influence. Someone put those two, Merlin and Unknown, on timeout. Wait, did they say something? Dude, man. Dude, thank you so much, man. Holy shit. Thank you, guys. There's a dark... I still can't get used to that. That's crazy, man. Fuck. How long? I mean, how long you want? There's a dark crack on his forehead that seemed to be capable of attracting the souls around him, and his eyes were gone. Every inch of the giant skin and flesh contained immense powers, infinite mystery, and a strange spiritual influence. It made everyone who witnessed it inevitably feel feel a sharp pain in their psyche, turning into a rampaging mess that wanted to destroy everything, including themselves. Inside the unshadowed domain, calling Iliad didn't need to worry that the Divine Kingdom's suppression would prevent him from controlling the incomplete mythical creature form, causing him to completely lose control. The invisible barrier around him immediately shrank, turning into silver sticky liquid metal that covered his entire body and solidified into an armor that couldn't be shaken. At that moment, the shadow of Uni's body condensed into something corporeal. It made him turn into a giant that was several meters tall. He held a black greatsword and wore black full body armor, Black Knight Clang. The black greatsword cleaved straight down, who was held back in midair by two swords from the light of dawn. The shadow beneath Uni's feet and the illusory black wings on his back extended outwards in an attempt to envelop Colin Iliad. Almost at the same time, rays of light of dawn formed around Colin as they swept forward. The storm that was filled with pure fragments of light swallowed Uni's shadow, only to be blocked by his black wings. Clang, 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 clang. Oh, bang, bang, bang. Calling Iliad's Silver Knight manifestation, Uni's Black Knight transformed, clashed violently, producing a spectator light show at the tower collapse. As for Derek, he leaped out of the Thunder God's roar in hand after receiving chief signal, heading straight for the Sun Saint. Amidst the howling winds, he brandished the ghostly blue hammer that was wrapped in lightning. He appeared like a sailor of the storm pathway, not a beyonder of the sun domain. The Sun Saint never expected that the unshadowed opposite him would be so rash that he chose to engage in close combat. Unable to react in time, he could only use his instincts to dodge to the side. With a loud crack, a silver white light burst out from the palace that was about to step in. It quickly engulfed him and tore his body apart. Damn. The Silver Knight evil spirit that Lovia graced also targeted the Sun Saint as it unleashed its attacks. A golden glow surged out from the Sun Saint's body like a tidal wave, melting the silvery white light, forming a layer of armor made of lights and a huge mace. Boom. The mace blocked the Thunder God's roar, causing the snaking bolts and light to fly everywhere. At the same time, dude, thank you. Holy shit. Yo, you guys gotta chill, man. You guys gotta chill. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Save your money. Oh my god, thank you. Bye. Sad face. No, don't say bye. Stay with us, guys. We're gonna finish tomorrow. This was the core power of the Unshadowed. It was extremely effective against wraiths, the fallen, and the unclean. Faced with the purification, Livia could only summon her Silver Knight evil spirit back and not let it out to gaze. She could only use the corresponding beyond powers to make up for her weaknesses. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. That was such a bad whoosh. That was such a bad attempt at a sound effect. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Silver beams of light occasionally blinked, flying at high speeds, forcing the Sun Saint to block and duck to protect himself. I'm out of breath. After taking a glance, Derek stopped brandishing Thunder God's roar again, nor did he pester the Sun Saint any further. He took a few steps back and cast his gaze towards the battle between the Black Greatsword and the Double Swords of Dawn. He then joined the battle between Colin Iliad and Uni. His expression turned solemn as he spread his arms wide as though he was hugging a gift from a deity. The unshadowed domains immediately became even brighter, as though the sunlight had penetrated through the barrier and shone in. Right on the heels of that, a ball of pure light surged countless holy flames and descended out of thin air. It enveloped Colin Iliad and Uni without any regards whether they were friends or foes. Flaring sun of an unshadowed. This was a theological spell that Klein had used to kill McGoose and the fetus in her womb. Oh shit, from volume 1. Yeah, from volume 1. I lost my place reading that. Flaring charm, or was it? No way, how did I lose my place? Colin Iliad was also injured. The silver armor of his body turned into liquid metal. Derek didn't pay much attention to this. He once again used Flaring Sun and once again enveloped Uni and Colin Iliad. He believed that compared to the enemy, who was the degeneration and corruption domain, the chief who was on the warrior pathway would suffer a lot less damage under the assault of Flaring Sun. He was also able to last much longer. After dealing with the main enemy, he could get Mr. Roll to summon Life's Cane to treat Chief. This was the fastest way to do it with Uni. This wasn't something that Derek had come up with himself, nor was it part of the plan that Klein had come up with. It was something that Colin Iliad had suggested himself. Oh, XP. Oh, you guys are getting a lot of XP, huh? Previously, when they were discussing outside the door, Colin had only introduced Uni and the shadowed possible abilities. He didn't come up with any proposals and had let the City of Silver's chief decide on the battle plan. This was because he knew that the shadow. Oh my god, I can't read. This was because he knew that the shadow understood him very well. He could think of anything he could think of. It was only the base of his own train of thoughts. It would be easy to resolve. Therefore, trusting an experienced former demon hunter was the best solution under the present circumstances. Calling Iliad didn't stand on ceremony. He confirmed that the main target that needed to deal with Uni, who had been corrupted by the Dark Angel. He formulated a plan around this key point and came up with a plan to clinch the victory through the internecine means. My brain is shutting down. He wasn't afraid of being hurt. He was only worried that there wouldn't be an opportunity such as this. The spherical light that was surrounding an infinity hole, flames blasted down, illuminating the surrounding areas. It made Klein's shadow dim significantly, making Uni's black wings become fainter and fainter, almost at the point of an illusion. But at this moment, a pair of black wings suddenly separated from Uni and transformed into a deep sea. Oh man, let's keep going, dude. This is such a good ass fight. Chapter 1256 is called I Have Something You Don't. The deep sea, dude, thank you. The deep sea swallowed the bright spherical light, darkening the entire unshadowed domain. Silver boats of lightning burst out from its interior, turning the sea where Uni and Calling Iliad were fighting into a forest of lightning. Amidst the sizzling sounds, countless bolts of lightning slipped outwards and drilled into the gaps in armor. The Silver Knight, who had shown an incomplete mythical creature form, immediately turned stiff, as though he was paralyzed by lightning. As for Uni, his black armor, which seemed to be formed from powers of degeneration, had completely absorbed the lightning, preventing his body from being affected by the rippling damage. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Uni, who had pitch black fragments peeling off from him, held the dark great sword with both hands and slashing at an angel. And at this moment, Calling Iliad had completely escaped from his paralyzed state. With a piercing, stabbing sound, a deep crack appeared on his left shoulder. The sturdy silver armor seemed to lose its defenses as it was cleaved open by a great sword. This was a Black Knight's coal of spiritual flesh. Not only could it corrode flesh and blood, it could obliterate souls and cleave through barriers. It could also cause any living creatures with degenerate thoughts to lose their defenses. It was a core beyond a power belonging to the Black Knight, stemming from the degeneration domain. Seeing that the coal of spiritual flesh had sliced open the silver armor on Calling Iliad's left shoulder, with the crack quickly deepening as if it went straight for the heart, and Derek tensed up and immediately condensed a spear made up of pure sunlight. He swung back his hand and threw it towards Uni, unshadowed sphere. Uni didn't abandon his attack of dodge. Instead, he raised his rampant illusionary black wings and used them to shield himself. So he's doing this. Sizzle. The unshadowed sphere pierced through 2 layers of the illusionary black wings. So it's going through it, bursting out a blinding white light that seemed to give a rise to a miniature sun. That's such a so wild trying to picture that. Like, these fights are so fucking like up compared to how it was back in Volume 1. At the same time, Khalid's entire body melted, turning into a pool of silver liquid metal. The liquid flowed rapidly, reforming the body of Calling Iliad into the distance. He still resembled a giant and was still wearing silver armor. However, half of the City Silver Chief's left shoulders and arm had fallen to the ground. The incision was clean with a blood flowing out. With the use of mercury liquefaction, Calling Iliad sacrificed at the arm to avoid Uni's lethal blow. His gaze behind his visor didn't waver at all. He grabbed the remaining Sword of Dawn and ran towards his target once again. It was like an unusually terrifying steam locomotive that exceeded its speed light. Derek quickly condensed his unshadowed domain again from the side, causing the spheres of light to fly towards Uni. During this process, he opened his mouth and solemnly said, "Good says that the purification is effective." This was the beyond the powers of the notoriety and unshadowed level. Its compatibility with the unshadowed domain created by the Sun Saint made the battlefield brighter even more, causing the degenerate auras of Uni and Lovia to further weaken. God said it's ineffective. The Sun Saint immediately denied Derek's proclamation, causing the unshadowed domain's purification effect to return to its former state. Amidst the crackling sounds, the unshadowed sphere approaching Uni. As for the black and illusory wings on the Black Knight's back, a few pairs had already faded under the miniature sun. He only had half left. Oh shit, so he's almost out. Uni couldn't effectively dodge the pure bright long spheres closing in on him since his hands were full fending off Calling Iliad. He made a pair of illusory black wings spread out, fully disintegrating into darkness. As soon as the Dude, Merlin, thank you for being a member for 4 months, man. Thank you. At this moment, the Sun Saint was also throwing the unshadowed spheres, creating pure white beams that shot across the air. This forced Lovia to use one of her gray souls to constantly blink in an attempt to approach the enemy. To her dismay, she could only use the abilities of one soul at a time. In such a state, she couldn't blink while condensing Silver Rapier to call the Sun Saint from a distance to create an opportunity for herself. Meanwhile, the battle between Klein and his shadow was exceptionally intense. Amidst the booming sounds of air, cannons of the flaring scarlet flames pierced pieces of paper scattering in all directions, and the illusions turned into bubbles and described the battle. The Silver Knight marionettes had basically surpassed the Spectator Saint. After all, no matter how strong the Mind Dragon's body was, it wasn't a match for a demigod of the giant pathway who went in close combat. Of course, the Spectator Saint wasn't in any danger. After all, he had revealed the incomplete mythical creature form. If it wasn't for the fact that his opponent was only a marionette and Klein had already digested the secrets of the potion and seen many high-level creatures, he could use his exposed godhood to interfere with the opponent's thoughts, slowly driving him crazy and losing his rationality. Yeah, it was at 1 minute, right? Yeah, I think I saw 60 seconds. Without the advantage of Godhood's influence, the Spectator Saints could only use the battle hypnotism to force the target to act erratically, such attacking in the wrong direction. Using this opportunity, he escaped from melee battle and entered a psychological invisibility state, again in an attempt to perform a sneak attack on Klein. A hypnotist battle hypnotism could forcefully hypnotize the enemy during the battle, making him do all sorts of erratic actions. However, such actions could directly cause harm to the victim, and it couldn't be maintained for too long as the target would quickly wake up. Of course, the battle hypnotism target, the Spectre Saints, was definitely not losing our place. Definitely not losing our place. I think this is where I was. Shit. This made it immune to all psychological effects. The target of his interference was the thought Klein transmitted through the spirit body threads, targeting them so that the information marionette received by erroneous as such, it would act differently from what Klein wanted. This was actually a psychic interference and not a psychic hypnotist. The effects was undoubtedly not as effective as the original version, but not every saint of the Spectator pathway could grasp such an effect. It was also a result of digging deep into one's beyond their powers and experimenting. To the Spectator Saints, there was nothing he could do about this. This is because, be it mind deprivation, mind storm, or mind breath, none of them were effective or marionette. The grayish-white fog that had its head covered in shadows had tried to close the distance with Klein several times, or to use its area of effect of beyond her powers, but it would stop the Silver Knight marionette. It kept being forced to dodge the Silver Rapier, which could erupt within its body. As Klein controlled his marionettes, he distanced himself from Spectator Saint and dealt with his unshadowed and dealt with his shadow. It wasn't too easy, but it wasn't too much of a burden. Suddenly, his spiritual perception was triggered as he entered a state of clarity, unique to instances when his dream or mind secretly intruded. With his lucidity, Klein allowed a portion of his consciousness to rise to the sky and look down at his island of consciousness. Oh shit, he's looking down at it. Then he saw Uni, the one who looked aged with a face covered in shadows, walk out of the boundless sea of the collective subconscious, open the door to his body of heart and mind. The Spectator Saint didn't attempt to change the island of consciousness in Klein's mind. All he did was produce a dark spherical light with his tentacles growing out of it. He turned it into a seed that was hard to discover before letting in to sink to the ground. A mental plague seed. Without any hesitation, Klein immediately switched his locations with the Silver Knight marionette, preventing the mental plague seed from landing in his island of consciousness. The Spectator Saint noticed this change not only when he not disappeared, he even revealed a smile. This is because he had long used virtual personas to secretly plant the mental plague seed on the still island of the Silver Knight marionette. Although this couldn't affect the marionette, it could unknowingly corrupt the enemy who had swapped positions with the marionettes and other targets in the surrounding areas. This was the kind of corruption and infection that targeted the island of consciousness and the psyche. It wasn't a direct attack, so it was difficult to use virtual persona to offset it. When the time came, the problem that Klein temporarily concealed was virtual persona was completely erupt. He would quickly plunge into a passage for losing control, entering an irreversible situation. I don't like that we're so close to losing control. I don't like where this is going. Shadow was no stranger to such a situation, as Hyven Rambus had used such a method before. I don't remember that. As he secretly laughed at Klein for becoming crazy, reckless, arrogant, and acting like a clown, one had forgotten lessons of the past. He snapped his fingers, summoning a scarlet flame. He then used it to jump over, embroiling himself within Klein. Another round of paper shreds flew into all directions as an intense battle destroyed the after images. After a short while, Klein suddenly stopped. He raised his left hand and he wrapped his transparent maggots and covered his left face. Ha! He let out a magical laugh and controlled the spiritual body threads around him like a madman, no longer distinguishing between friend and foe. On his right cheek, pale meat tendrils. Wait, which cheek? Wait, I'm sorry. On his right cheek, pale meat tendrils protruded out as if they were worms of spirit that were about to bore out. Bro, what's happening to him? When Shadow saw that Klein had gone crazy and was about to lose control, he was worried that he would be infected by the mental plague. He hurriedly made a scarlet flame rise up and swallow himself. In the distance, his figure emerged from the flames that had yet to extinguish. At this moment, the Silver Knight marionette would occasionally launch an attack and occasionally do a twitching dance. It was obviously that it wasn't under normal control. What the fuck? Why are we saying bruh? Wait, what happened? The spectator saint didn't want to give an enemy who was infected by the mental plague a chance to breathe. He wanted him to immediately lose control. No. We got to keep it together, bro. Suddenly, this mind dragon's actions became sluggish, as if every joint was injected with glue. In the next second, a silver white beam erupted from his body, splitting his flesh and blood, tearing apart from his body. With his back bent, the laughing Klein slowly straightened his body calmly. He released the palm covering his left cheek, and he smiled at the shadow in the distance behind him. Waves after waves of silently white beams. Sorry, I'm showing you guys my toes. My bad. I can see that slightly at the corner of my eyes. I'm sorry. Behind him, waves after wave of silvery white beams tore apart the mind dragon, turning it into pieces of pitch black flesh. They fell to the ground, and they knelt. Marionettes in silver armor retracted his broadsword and looked coldly at the shadow. Looking at the slightly lost shadow, the few worms of spirit on his face curled up and stimulated the covered in corners of a smile. You haven't seemed to have noticed that I have something that you don't. What? What is it? Chapter 1257. Final chapter for today. Chapter 1257 is called Too Weak. As he spoke, Klein raised his right hand. A piece of pitch black and filthy flesh had appeared on his palm at some point in time. It contained an why am I speaking like this? What the fuck kind of accent is that? It contained indescribable wait. Why am I speaking with an accent all of a sudden? It contained I saw my toe at the corner of my eyes again. It contained an indescribable aspect of madness. The answer is the hanged man's corruption. Klein said to the shadow of a smile, the thing that he had, the shadow didn't, was the corruption left behind, but he has the corruption of the true creator. This was an influence that even the power of Sephiroth Castle couldn't dissipate for the time being. Oh shit. And one thing he was certain of was that before he met Dark Angel Sasir, the true creator wouldn't easily allow him to lose control or die. Therefore, he deliberately allowed the corrupted parts of his body to be infected by mental plague, pretending that he had lost control. Then he pretended to... Oh! He's been pretending? Then he pretended to be controlling spirit body threads in an aimless manner so as to cover the fact that the target was actually the spectator saint. When the opponent launched any further attack, he successfully entered a sluggish state, creating an opportunity for the Silver Knight marionette. As he expected, the corruption part of him warped around the seeds of the mental plague, preventing the negative effects from erupting. During this process, Shadow had distanced himself from Klein because of his concern about the effects of mental plague. This made him fail to notice the abnormality of the spectator saints of the spirit body threads. How could Klein not know how careful and cautious he was? Of course, Klein couldn't predict the kind of changes the corruptions would bring when he met Dark Angel Sasir. With the mental plague, he had been suppressed, leak out, and cause certain effects. All he could do was resolve the problems at hand. Upon hearing these words, the pure shadow suddenly burst into a scarlet flame that instantly engulfed him. At the edge of the unshadowed domain near the place where the giant king resided, a wisp of fire rapidly rose up and the shadow appeared. He didn't hesitate to escape. He ran towards the palace, which acted as a resting chamber for the slumbering Dark Angel Sasir, completely ignoring Uni and the Sun Saint. When Klein was using his virtual persona, he saw the scenes. He was stunned. He couldn't help but smile at the worm of spirit and shake his head. I'm actually that timid. He suspected that the shadow was splitted off from him, had taken away most of his caution and carefulness, leaving behind more of the impulsiveness and recklessness. That can happen. A silvery white beam lit up at smoke scarlet flames that descended outside of the unshadowed domain, shattering the pitch black shadow that had just appeared. Klein hadn't wasted time muttering to himself. He had long controlled the Silver Knight marionette according to the distribution of the flames of his habits. He predicted the next few areas that the shadow would jump to. Then he condensed the silver rapier ahead of time and smote down the moment the flames descended. Unshadowed domain didn't have a barrier in physical senses. Anyone could leave or exert influences on the outside world. However, the torn up shadow eventually burned into thin pieces of paper and quickly disappeared. Another few burning scarlet flames descended, and the black shadow used them to jump, moving closer to the door of the Giant King's residence. The silver white light that subsequently tore him apart from only managed to take down his paper figurine substitutes. From sequence 5 Beyonders of the Warrior Pathway, he had the ability to see through the illusions. Oh, snap. At that moment, Klein swapped positions with Silver Knight Marionette. He gave the shadow the impression that he could enter the palace as long as he could destroy the Guardian's bearers. Of course, his true body interfered with shadow summoning of the historical projection and controlling of spirit body threats. When the tables turned, the battle between the three demigods of the City of Silver, Uni and the Sun Saint, also changed. When Colin Alad once again kept Uni, who had lost his black armor, Busy Derek repeated this previous strategy. At times, he would use Flaring Sun as an area effect attack to trade injuries to the chief for victory. At times, he would condense a pure white unshadowed sphere and engage in precision attacks. This wasn't used often because it was easy for Uni to avoid it, causing Colin Alad to accidentally be injured. Oh yeah, we don't want that to happen. After 3 rounds of Flaring Sun, Uni finally reached the end of his rope. He once again spread out the last 2 pairs of the illusory black wings, turning it into a pitch black sea that devoured all the light. He then drowned Colin Iliad, causing the City of Silver's chief body to be covered with a layer of thick black liquid. His actions were clearly affected. Seizing this opportunity, Uni escaped from the entanglement and avoided the subsequent unshadowed sphere. He transformed into a shadow and quickly moved towards the Giant King's residence in an attempt to join the forces with the shadow to break through the barrier. At that moment, a silvery white beam burst out from his body, ripping him into the blobs of dark red flesh. This sudden surgical strike came from Lovia, the 6-member council elder had actually given up on dodging the attacks of the Sun Saint. At an instant, Uni, who was about to escape the battlefield, she decisively switched the gray soul to the Silver Knight evil spirit, dyeing her black armor silver. Sizzle. Damn, is there artwork with her wearing this armor? Or is there any artwork from we've been reading today? Like, I need to look at pictures, man. This shit is so badass. The dazzling white and pure unshadowed sphere hit the lady, causing her to shrink slightly in the blazing sun to completely devour her. Yes? Fuck yeah. To completely devour her. The blobs of flesh in Uni's body remained sentient. They quickly gathered together in an attempt to rebuild the body. However, at this moment, the black sticky liquid restricted the movements and Colin Iliad exploded with specks of light. They turned into a storm that tore through the obstruction, allowing the silver armor to resurface. Oh, it comes back. Right on the heels of that, the gigantified Silver Knight took a step forward and swung the Sword of Dawn in his hand, allowing the hurricane of light from before to continue sweeping forward in new. I can't picture this anymore. Hold up, I'm getting lost in the sauce. This is too badass. Inundating the blob of dark red flesh, a pair of illusory black wings appeared and dissipated, claiming the hurricane of light. However, Derek's flaring sun continued. Holy flames, holy lords of storms, man. Holy flames ignited every blob of flesh of drop of blood, melting everything with pure light. When the Sun Saint saw this scene, he knew that it was impossible for him to escape with the fate being destroyed. He didn't bother dealing with another blow to Livia and turned around, about to withdraw from the unshadowed domain. Suddenly, he heard a voice filled with malice and corruption. Slow. Lovia struggled to free herself from the remnant powers of the unshadowed sphere and teleported to a spot not far away from the Sun Saint. Then she switched the gray souls to a double and used the language of the language of foulness. So she said, slow. At that moment, the black armor in her body completely shattered. There were many cracks on her purple patterned black robe, revealing her slowly squirming flesh. Her aura was rather weak. The slow that was at the level of a demigod couldn't affect the Sun Saint for too long. However, this was enough for Colin Iliad. He condensed a silver rapier and made it teleport to the enemy. This silver rapier experienced a random mutation and directly pierced through the holy armor of the Sun Saint and exploded in his body. Silver light bloomed as the Sun Saint blasted into countless pieces. Paw, paw, paw. The flesh fell to the ground and vanished in a blink of an eye, as though they had returned to the pages of history. After the battle ended, the 3 demigods of the City of Silver immediately approached the Giant King's residence and and pincered shadows. Shadow leaped and attempted to hide in the fog of history. However, just as he saw the grayish-white fog, he was pressed down by the hand wrapped by the transparent maggots. Neither him nor Klein dashed to the time before the first epoch because they knew that the other party would definitely stop them or wait there. With nowhere to hide, Shadow immediately fell to the encirclement of the three cities of silver demigods. His various powers were also offset by Klein. Even Flaming Jump was affected by Flaming Control, making it difficult for him to escape his predicament. More than 10 seconds passed after the paper figurines were torn apart. Shadow finally expended all his subsequents. He was then stabbed in the abdomen by Derek's unshadowed sphere. A round of blinding white light and a miniature sun exploded. The pitch black shadow quickly faded and completely melted. Klein felt stabbed, pain in his head and his mind, which was on the verge of losing control. Suddenly relaxed, he instinctively looked at his feet and shouted that under the illumination of light and dawn, a faint black shadow extended out from them. Too weak, Klein bent his back slightly and couldn't help but mock himself. After all, without the powers of a scholar of yore, without a marionette, and without the ability to control, like, what else? You have nothing. And without the ability to control the spirit body threads, a seer was relatively weak against the other demigods of the same sequence. Like, yeah, you got nothing, bro. Sorry. Spear. I keep saying sphere. Sorry. Spear. Spear of light, not sphere of light. Sorry. His spirit had been restored to its original state, but he had yet to remove his virtual persona. Furthermore, he had no intention of merely submitting Misjustice's historical projection to do this, as he had been corrupted by the dark angel Uni. Wait one sec. His spirit had been restored to his original state, but he had yet to remove the virtual persona. Oh wait, I skipped this. I thought I skipped the sentence. Furthermore, he had no intention of merely summoning Misjustice's historical projection to do this, and he had been corrupted by the Dark Angel Uni, who had shown the characteristics of the Sun, Spectator, Storm, and Secret Suppliant's pathway. If he wanted to enter the Giant King's residence, he had to be aware of the psychological influence. His virtual persona was a very good defensive measure. At that moment, the transparent maggots on his left side of Klein's body quickly settled down, returning to his flesh and skin. However, due to the crazy effects of the virtual persona, there was still a translucent layer on the surface, allowing people to see the worms of the spirit hidden underneath. When Derek and Novia and the others cast their I don't want to read it. Caster gazed on him. Klein straightened his back and reached out to grab Life's cane. He pointed and opened the door to the Giant King's residence and laughed. Does he see Giant King Sincere? Giant King Sincere? Make every second count. Oh shit. Make every second count. The Dark Angel is waiting for us inside. Oh shit. Oh, that's good. Let's do our overall thoughts, man. Wait. Sorry, I said it wrong. Not Giant King Sincere. Dark Angel Sincere. What did I say? I literally read Dark Angel and I said Giant King Sincere. I see what I did. I mixed up my two things. We're going to meet Dark Angel Sincere in the Giant King's court. That is what I meant. All right, let me know when to look, man, because, oh, man, this is good. This shit was a banger, man. What a fucking good chapter. Let's leave 1258 for tomorrow. So we're finishing it tomorrow, man. Merlin, you would get to know finally. Easy is showing it. You would get to know finally. What was it? What were you asking, Merlin? Share with us, dog. We want to laugh too. Oh, that. When whoever can delete gets online. Oh. What if I don't look? Unless you give me a role on Discord. Bet. Let me see. Man, this was good. This was good. I got you on guard. I got you on guard, Cammy. Let me know. Oh man, this was good. What the fuck, man? We literally fought Uni. That's so random. I never thought we'd be facing off against our own marionette like that. And then the whole fucking shadow. Oh, so cool. And then he's like using his fucking wings to like block. And then the spear, not sphere, the spear of light, just like, and he's like blocking it. Oh, that was so cool. And then there's, I keep forgetting they're like giants when they're fighting. I keep forgetting Colin. These marionettes, man, marionettes ain't low, man. These marionettes ain't low, man. The streets be mean sometimes, man. Oh shit, it was so cool. And then I keep forgetting Colin is in his like 18-foot form, bro. It's a really fucking awesome fight. I do need to like what I do whenever there's a hype fight, I do like to reread it like by myself in my head at a very slow, moderate pace, and kind of just like digest it better. And like I don't know, like and then I get more hype reading it, man. It's so fucking cool, man. Wait here, let me start opening up the artwork section, and scroll up right away before I look. I scrolled up. Oh, Milosh posted this a few days ago. Check this out. See this one. I didn't see this one. This was an Osot. Were you in Wiz's server artwork? Right now? No. I was on it for a second. I was on this for a second when I clicked on his by accident. But I don't think... Oh, wait. No, I didn't click on his artwork. No, God forbid. God forbid that doesn't happen. Oh, shit. Imagine... Wait, I don't know. I don't think so. Where is artwork? No, I think we're chill. I wouldn't even be able to find it. I don't even see it. Oh, actually, I do see it. Okay. Okay, I lied. I do see it. Okay, I'll be careful. All right, let's see. I didn't see the one from earlier, so this was a new one. When was this? I don't remember when this took place. That would have been really bad. That would have been really bad, bro. What I do sometimes I do accidentally click on Wiz's server instead of mine. I do, you know what? I lied. One time I did click on his artwork section in the past thinking it was mine. But it was like way back then. Going there is good now? Is good way to get spoiler. Oh, going there now is a good way. Yeah, it's definitely a good way to get spoiler. Yeah. But it was back then, man. It was a while ago. Luckily, I didn't see anything. I think I saw a few memes. All right, where we tonight? Germingen's spot. Forge is beautiful, man. I think she's growing on me, man. The more I read her, the more she grows on me. The 8 Kings of Angels. Damn. So this is Dark Angel Sister right away. This is him right away. That's him right away. Whoa. Kings of Angels that were closest to being a god. What the fuck? Fours is definitely an acquired taste. She's growing on me. Now, what I do want to know, I want to know what was her dream that she did not want to speak about. I want to know who she dreamed about. No, I won't click on it. Adam? We drew Adam? Fuck yeah. Zik. Oh, this one's cool. Oh, he's on the pile of... Look at all these fucking corpses he's standing on, man. Holy shit. Oh, these are new pictures? Okay, hell yeah. Damn! Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, I completely forgot about the music. I like it too much. I keep forgetting. To change it. Let's play Old Lumiere. Yeah, let's just loop Old Lumiere. Damn. Look at that. He's just opening the door. All right, guys, let's go. Wow, this thing is fucking huge. I didn't realize how big it was. Damn. That's how big. That's a giant. It's like a giant. Damn. That's cool as fuck. That is so fucking cool, dude. Look at that smile, man. Holy shit, man. I forget how much of a badass he is. Dude, I'm gonna say it, man. German's a hunk. I get it. I get why there's so much fan art of him. He's a fucking hunk. He's just actually a hunk. He just has aura that we just can't have. Like, this aura is just too dangerous to hold, man. This aura is just too dangerous. I like this one a lot so far. Easy. When are we getting the new YouTube stickers, huh? I haven't added them. Let me know what you guys want to make stickers. Let me know. We can make the clown a sticker. Wait, no, I think I have the clown. We'll see. You let me know what you guys want in stickers, and we can add them. Hey, you guys let me know. And then we'll make the stickers happen. Because we can add, like, I think 3 to 4 new stickers. Mr. Clown, dude. What a... Damn! What a fucking badass! Whoa! What the fuck? You know who this dude looks like? Who is this? Colin Iliad. Lovia, Derek. You know who this fucking dude kind of reminds me of right away? This reminds me of Zach from FF7. Just a little bit. I know the hair isn't as pointy as Zach, but like I saw the sword and like the black hair kind of. Yeah, Zach from FF. Thank you, Zen. Yeah, it looked kind of like Zach from Final Fantasy. Oh shit. Yo, what's up, Sonny? Bro, this has to be the thumbnail. This looks sick as fuck. We can probably put these two together. Random City Silver guy. Yeah, I assume it's just people from the expedition team they made stay behind, right? But damn, it looks cool. Damn. That's fucking gross. Oh my god. Damn. Oh my god, this is so fucking cool. Fucking Colin, you take that one. I'll get this one. He's like, hey, I got this. I got this. That is so fucking cool. The fact that he's like, hey, these schmucks, these little toys, instantly takes out both. That was such a badass fucking moment, man. Holy shit, man. Speaking of disgustingly cool, Klein is just disgustingly strong, bro. And he ain't even a miracle invoker. Like, he's not even sequence 2, bro. I couldn't find the high quality version for the last one. It happens. It happens. Sometimes for some reason, it's hard to find like a high res picture or something, or like the original source of a picture. Man, easy. We need the absolute cinema sticker for chat. If you guys want, link it to me on general so I can save it. That way I can already have it saved on my folder, and then I can just upload it. Yeah. Spam it on general right now, or you know what? Spam it here in the artwork, or just put it here in the artwork, and I'll save it. Whatever you guys, since you guys are watching right now, 20 of you guys, whatever emote you guys want, quickly put it on the artwork section. Yeah, and then I'll add it. I'll add it. Yeah, because we're definitely gonna need it for the ending, huh? Damn, man, that's fucking cool, dude. Oh, it's so fucking sick. I am so excited reading this, man. Volume 6 has been a fucking blast, man. Volume 6 is an actual fucking banger. Hands down, I think one of my favorite volumes. At this? Well, you gotta let me know which one, Kami. Wait, you mean the emoji? No, we're not adding that. This is my reaction reading LOTM right now. I was like, that's so fucking good, dude. Oh, man. All right, I'm gonna let you go. We are live in exactly 20 hours. A sunlight sticker to fight corruption. Question, do you still want me to send chapter ranges for volume 7 onwards when you get there, or are you just going to play by ear? I guess we can play by the ear in the beginning, right? But then as we get closer to the end, or like the halfway point of volume 7, you can let me know, love. Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see. Yeah, you know what? No, send it to me. That way I also have like that way I can at least have like a rough idea. Yeah. If you have like a rough range for volume 7, let me know. Yeah. But I'm gonna let you guys go. This was a banger ass volume. I genuinely think I don't genuinely think. I know like the volumes like actually factually get better as we keep reading. Every volume is so different from the last. Little did I know, like, I'm so happy we finally got like a City of Silver, like a Forsaken Lands of the Gods volume. Bro, next stream is in 20 hours. I think I had a stream set up for like in 10 minutes. I'm gonna change that stream for 20 hours from now. And exactly 20 hours we're live. But once I end stream, I'll adjust it. So I'm gonna let you beautiful people go. And we will be back in 20 hours. Set your timers, guys. Tell Siri, wait, hold up, Siri. Don't respond. Tell your Siris and your Alexas that in 20 hours we are live for the finale. Make sure to announce it because it's the final stream. I know. I'll announce it right now before I go to bed, and I'll announce it. I'll announce it like 5. I'll announce it a lot. I'll announce it before I go to bed when I wake up, a few hours before, and then I'll also announce it on Twitter. I'm gonna sleep 18 hours then. Yeah, you guys gotta sleep. Get some rest, man. I'll see you guys out tomorrow. Peace, and have an amazing, beautiful day. And good, man. We locked in. We read a good amount.